morning to those who have already logged in. Let me share my screen and we will get started here in about 10 minutes. Let me go ahead and do that. Or it may have given you that pop-up when we started. So we are recording the session today. I'm doing so because I have learned with virtual sessions over time that people get distracted where they are. And sometimes it's nice to go back to the recording and catch back up if you missed something or if you need to hear something again, or you have to step out for a second. So we are recording. This recording will be shared with you. It will probably be this afternoon, but maybe tomorrow morning. Sometimes the sessions take a little bit to render on Zoom, and then I will send that out to everyone who's attending. Speaking of attending, please do register here for today at the bit.ly link that's above. It is 470 capital D lowercase EC1. And then if you want a copy of today's presentation, you are welcome to have that as well. It is all caps, and this will be the same presentation for all of the 470 sessions this year. So it is LTC 470 FY23 on that bit.ly. Thank you all for joining us today. We have a really large group for our first presentation of the year. I do miss seeing everyone face to face, but happy to see some of your little faces on my screen in front of me. If my eyes keep going to the top, it's because I have a second screen where I am watching the chat as well as any hand raising or anything going on your little individual cameras. If you need me, there are some features here in Zoom. There is one that if you might need to click on more to see the more features, but there's one there that it says reactions. So you are welcome to raise your hand using the reactions or welcome to go off of mute. You were all automatically muted when you came in, so we don't have like children screaming or dogs barking, but you are welcome to use the chat or go off mute at any time if you want to stop me and you have a question. So welcome to the E-Rate Essentials 2023 for the 23-24 school year. This is the 50th anniversary of E-Rate. So yay, happy birthday E-Rate, not 50th, it should be the 20th. I will change that, but it is the 20th anniversary of E-Rate, and we are happy to see you all here. Some of you were feeling extremely old there all of a sudden. I saw some like flinching. It is the 20th anniversary, started in the late 90s. So my name is Mindy Fiscus. For those of you who do not know me, I am the Director of Government Affairs for the Learning Technology Center. My job is to work with E-Rate as your state E-Rate coordinator, as well as other federal and state programs for funding and access and advocacy. So I do a little bit of everything revolving around federal and state funding here at the LTC. Serving as your state E-Rate coordinator is one of my privileges. I really do love this program and everything about it and how much money it brings into our state each year. I know that makes me weird, and that's okay. So several of you have been around with us for years in the program, and some of you are brand new, and that is okay. These sessions are designed to kind of give you a step-by-step and catch you up. I totally recognize that many of you wear multiple hats, and E-Rate is just one of those throughout the year. And so we do have a lot of slides and things set aside to allow for questions and answers. And please know there is no crazy question in E-Rate. Sometimes some of the best questions are the people who've been doing it for 20 years with me and still just need a refresher here and there. So if you have a question or comment, please do use the chat, raise your hand, or just go off of mute and interrupt me. I also serve as the state representative for CETA, which is the State Education Network for educational technology support, and do all kinds of conversations about broadband connectivity in our state, as well as I organize our LTC and LTC presence at the state fair every year for the K12 STEAM Expo. And so that's just a little bit about what I do. I used to serve as the director for Southern Illinois. So some people know me from that previous role. I worked there for 15 years before I started here at the Learning Technology Center for the last 6. So here, happy to be here with the LTC, technically 23 years at the LTC, longest running staff member. For those of you who are not familiar with the Learning Technology Center, we are a statewide program that is funded by the State Board of Education. So the programs that we offer to you are of no cost to you or cost recovery. So we do offer a whole lot of programs. And so I did put in a slide here that shows you all of our various focus areas. I'm happy to have you here today, but I'm just one person of around a 30-person team now. So if you are interested in STEM, if you are interested in finding coaches for your school, if you would like to learn a little bit about SOPA or computer science or even cybersecurity, we try to be a one-stop shop and find you the resources that you need. So please do check out our website. It will be at ltcillinois.org, which is right there in the middle of the page. And if you have not joined our community, this is the direct link to the community. So it's just community.ltcillinois.org. This will keep you abreast of things that are going on. Once you join the community, you can post questions and share with everyone in the groups that you're in. You can also sign up, please, for our funding and access and connectivity group. That is where I post out announcements and things that have to do, trainings, etc., with E-Rate. I am going to take just a minute to come over here and repost for anybody that came in. Here is in your chat the link to the sign-in sheet. Please do sign in. And also, here is the link to today's presentation. If I can get it copied. Select all. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Just working on copying the presentation link. And those two things are in the chat. You are welcome to follow along in today's presentation with me, or just check on our screen. Again, we are recording, and you will receive a copy of that recording or a link to a copy of that recording after the session. Yes, somebody with a question?
For the buzzers.
All right, let me come over here and see. I'm gonna go ahead and mute our friend that was in the background. Again, if you want to ask a question, you are free to unmute and have a conversation with us. If we do have a distraction, I'll just go ahead and remute you. All right, so especially for our new people, I just thought this was an appropriate graphic. E-Rate, what did you get yourself into? We're going to start today with the basics of E-Rate very quickly. If you have more questions, or if this is your first go round with E-Rate and you are feeling like you need a little bit of a walkthrough, you can't get logged in today, you're having some real struggles, please feel free to reach out to me. Part of what I do is have Zoom webinars individually with people to walk them through the program, what's happened before they have started with the program, and what are our next steps. So if you feel like we're going too fast today, please feel free to either slow us down or reach out to me directly. I recognize that E-Rate can be an overwhelming program, and today might feel like you are drinking from a garden hose. That is normal. E-Rate itself stands for education rate. It was started in the late 90s, so we are celebrating the 23rd or the 20th anniversary of E-Rate. It is put into place by Congress, then given to the FCC to manage. The FCC then picked a nonprofit called USAC, the Universal Service Administrative Company, that runs the program for them. There are many times that you will talk to me and I will say, that is an E-Rate rule. We will have to talk to the FCC about that. That is because FCC is in charge of the rules and USAC is in charge of the process. So there are a couple different partners that we work with. For major changes to the program, it will have to go back to Congress for new laws. And we've seen some of that a little bit in the pandemic. On the USAC page, it is just USAC.org. There is a little sign in button in the upper right hand corner of the page. This is where you get into the portal to access the forms that we're using today. I said in my email that I sent out to everyone yesterday, if you don't have access to the portal, you really do have to call a 1-800 number to get access to that. That's not something that I can do for you, but you are welcome to follow along today with us. Hopefully all of you do have access. We will provide time for a demo, which is hands-on. If you have a second screen, you can do it along with us. So USAC is who we're dealing with. And this is what the process looks like. So today we are starting our 470 for next school year. The 470 is an open bidding process. It's kind of a wish list of sorts where we put out what we would like to have for next school year. On the next couple of slides, we'll talk about what's eligible for the program. So know today that you are filling out your wish list. You must wait 28 days before picking a winning bid and then filing your 471. The 471 is due usually mid-March. They have not announced the date for this year. That typically happens in early January. I try to do our E-rate support for the 470 in December, so we are good to go and have waited our 28 days when that window does open. Again, it will be open from mid-January through mid-March, and it is a hard deadline. So this is not one of your ISB deadlines where you can just say, hey, I'm 3 months late here. Can I ask for my funding? And sometimes ISB can pull some strings. There are no strings to be pulled. These are hard deadlines. We really do need to meet them by mid-March when they set them. On the 471, which I also offer workshops and trainings for, we will be detailed in providing exactly what you want, at what cost, and from who. So today is more open-ended. The 471 is very specific. And then once you have applied your 471, you go through a review process that is called Program Integrity Assurance. PIA review happens. You may be asked some questions about the products and services that you're asking for. You answer those questions all through our application portal back and forth. And once you get your approval, you then file the 486. The 486 just confirms that you are moving forward with those programs and services and devices, and also certifies that you are filtering harmful content from your students using a filter or something for products, pornography, and things that they should not be seeing. Lastly, there are two different forms, the 472 and the 474, which allow you to invoice the program. So for those of you who are brand new with us today, you may be inheriting a binder full of information that has every single form that was filed for the previous year. If you're looking at something from FY22, which is the current 22-23 school year, you can use those as a guide when filling out your forms this year. So a lot of people go ahead and pass on a binder when they leave the district or retire. Please check when you're looking at that to see that your 486 was confirmed for this year, that you do have confirmed your services. If not, I'm happy to help you with that. And we have a video on YouTube that can walk you through that process. If you had not filed the 486 and that was still open, there was probably an automatic email that came out a few weeks ago telling you that you needed to go ahead and file that. Again, if you need to collect money from previous years, maybe last school year, 21-22, or maybe you still have some products that have not been delivered that you're wanting to pay for the whole product and then get reimbursed, we can do that. The 472 is when you pay the whole bill and then ask the federal government to give you your percentage back. The 474 is when you just pay your portion or your discount. So for some of you, your 70% discount, you'll pay 30% of the bill, and the company itself goes in and asks USAC to pay the remaining costs. So there's two different ways to invoice. Again, I am happy to walk anyone through the 486, 472, or 474 process, or catch you up from where you are. Please just reach out to me and let me know that you want to have an individual meeting, and we can do that. We do offer trainings for the 470 and 471. These are the workshops that are scheduled for this year. So I have everything virtual this year for the FY23 workshop series. You, of course, are at our very first one of the 470. We will continue to have those through January 10th. So we're going to keep having those. Notice most of them are in the month of December. If something happens today and you get drawn away and you need to come to another session, you are totally welcome to. We will then follow up with our 471 workshops that are happening starting February 1st. Again, designed to be at least 28 days after filing your 470. In addition to that, there are some regional offices in the state who have reached out to me and asked me to come and do face-to-face trainings. So there are a handful of those. ROE 11 in Charleston is hosting an in-person event. ROE 3 is hosting in-person events in Litchfield and Vandalia. And then ROE 13 is hosting an event there in the Mount Vernon office. So if you are interested in going to one of those face-to-face events, you can find them at the link at the bottom right. That is just our E-rate page. You can also just go to the LTC calendar and do a search for 470 or 471 and see those events. So we have scheduled a few face-to-face events for the 470 for those of you who are in those areas. I will say we've got a few people from Mount Vernon with us today. If you want to come to the face-to-face event in Mount Vernon, it is not until January. I think that's the only one that might not be on our calendar yet because it was just scheduled. So you are welcome to attend virtual or face-to-face, whatever meets your needs. I did mention getting into the program today. Sometimes we have some program errors that we are dealing with. I worked extensively with a district this week that was trying to file something and kept getting red error boxes. There was a program problem with the interface itself with the portal that we were able to get resolved. But these are the phone numbers for questions about E-rate. You can call that customer service number that's listed there. If you have questions about ECF, which we'll talk just a little bit about today, there is a separate number for ECF questions. So just wanted to make sure that I had these on a screen for you guys in case somebody needed those numbers. They do have some USAC training webinars that they've recorded. They are getting better each time they do a new training. So if you're interested in watching their trainings or learning more about the general parts of the program, you can do so at their training series as well. So the first question, any updates on round 3, is a great question in the chat. Yes, so I will talk about it when we get to the ECF page. So I will not forget, but we do have a few little updates for round 3, and I'm a little bit more optimistic for everyone on that ECF round 3. So what can you get in this E-rate program? You can get broadband services, so internet access for your district, both connectivity to your main building and between buildings if you have multiple buildings. Those broadband services, just about any type of delivery that you want, are eligible for E-rate. For those of you who are in rural areas, that also counts if you need to like go do a Starlink or an Amazon satellite service. You are eligible for those in E-rate as well. Those can get kind of expensive. So those services are all eligible through broadband services in category 1. Category 2 is a different level of what we're applying for today, and you'll see those on the form here in a bit. Category 2 includes your network equipment, management, and maintenance of that network equipment. So that is everything from paying a company to come in and maintain your network for you to the equipment itself for your network, routers, switches, wireless access points. It does not include servers unless it's a caching server. And it also does not include end user devices. So no Chromebooks, teacher laptops, interactive boards, things like that don't count. It's just getting the network throughout your school. So those are eligible for category 2. Several of you know that there has been a lot of discussion about E-rate and what is eligible for E-rate this year. I'm going to go back one screen. This is the link to the eligible services list for FY22. The reason it is FY22 and not 23 is because the 23 link has not been released yet. When they talk about eligible services at the FCC, they typically send out a form that says, this is what we think will be eligible for the program this year. And then there is a comment period where they allow people to give comments and say what they think should be eligible for the program, if they like the list or if they think some things should be added to the list. That process for comments has ended, but we have not received the new FY23 list. I will tell you, the FY23 list as it was released in draft matched the 22. There was really nothing different on that list. However, the comments have been hot and heavy and strong. They are hearing that you want cybersecurity services eligible for E-rate. They are hearing that at the very least, you want your entire firewall paid for. So we know, and it has been a struggle the last couple of years as people have applied for firewalls. You ask for the entire firewall, says it's let's just do a round number of $1,000 for the firewall. You turn it into E-rate, and in PIA review, they come back and they say out of that $1,000, only 500 of it is eligible for E-rate because 250 of it is for filtering and another 250 of it is advanced services, or what USAC likes to call next generation services. There are a lot of people in the field making the point that next generation is now current generation services on firewalls, and we should have that entire firewall paid for in the program. I cannot say that they are going to say yes to us, but there are a lot of people asking for that. So please know, if you are interested in getting a firewall, let's watch that eligible services list when it comes out this year and see if we can get more of our firewalls paid for than we have had the last couple of years. In addition to that, the commissioner said several months ago, back in May, that she would like to see Wi-Fi on buses eligible for the program. So if that is something that you are currently providing or something that you're interested in providing, you are welcome to bid that out. It was not on the draft eligible services list, and lots of people commented and said, why? You said you wanted it, where is it? And so it's completely possible that the new FY23 list will come out with some changes for cybersecurity and Wi-Fi on buses. It's also completely possible that that list will come out mirroring last year with a comment that says, we're looking into this for future years. So right now it's kind of up in the air. I am a little optimistic with the buzz. This is the strongest response that we have had in commenting on what should be eligible in years. So they're definitely listening. I'm calling it a good thing that we haven't seen the list yet, meaning that maybe they're doing some revisions and adding some services that we would like to see. So know that that is a work in progress, and we will keep attuned to that. I will be posting updates out on the listserv that I mentioned earlier in our LTC community when that does hit the floor and what that looks like. For category 2, first, let me go back to category 1. For category 1, it does not matter what your internet costs, whether you're paying $100 a month or $10,000 a month for your internet. It does not matter. There is no cap depending on your school size. They know that sometimes it takes a lot more money to get out to a single school, tiny school district in rural Nebraska than it does to fund a large school district inner city sometimes. You never know what your cost is going to be, and they don't hold you accountable for that. So category 1 has no cap. You may ask for whatever it costs you to get your internet. Category 2 does have a budget. It is a formula budget. It is listed out here, and it's meant to last you 5 years. So this will run from the first year, which was the 21-22 school year, through FY25, which is our 25-26 school year. This means we are applying for year 3 of this budget. So all of you were figured a budget at $167 per student, or for our libraries that are with us, $4.50 per square foot, with a minimum of $25,000. So if you have less than 150 kids in your school building, you will find a $25,000 amount for that particular building. If you have less than 11 buildings, each building gets a total amount, then they add it all together, and that is your district budget. If you have more than 11 buildings, you have to choose whether you want to do a per student, like total number of students times 167, or if you want to do 25,000 per building and calculate it that way. They are going to try to give you the best budget, but sometimes they do make a mistake, and you will have to reach out to them and say, hey, this particular building should have $25,000 minimum because there are less than 150 students at that building. All of these are based on the counts that we have inside of EPC, and we will be updating those counts today. You are responsible for your non-discounted share. So if your budget comes up and it says you have $100,000 to last you 5 years, but you are a 80% school district, you are still responsible for the $20,000. So you can spend it all in 1 year if you wanted. USAC would pay $80,000, you would pay the $20,000. So depending on what discount level your school district is at determines how much of that you have to put in as a match. The tool that I'm about to show you will give you the total amount for your particular budget and what you're looking at moving forward and how much you've spent. So we're going to get ready to do a demo. So let me select. It is demonstration time. So let me click on this link and then let me send out the link in the chat for everyone. I'll do the long link instead of the short. If you want to click in and follow along, you are welcome to do so. You are also welcome to watch on our screen. So you're here at the E-Rate Category 2 Budget Tool. Again, doing a Google search for E-Rate Cat C2 Budget Tool will give you a link to this page. It's fairly easy to find. They've got a lot of really good directors in Google to get you there. This shows you for the entire United States. We are going to first say IL, so we can filter it down to Illinois. And then you have to click apply. So on each of these, there's an apply button. So it will now filter down. This is all of the schools down below in Illinois. So we're looking at just Illinois. Again, the total Illinois budget amount is $241 million. So that's a lot for available budget. We're going to come over here. Then you can choose applicant type, work by city, etc. Let's just do an example here. I'm looking here. We're going to do Newton, because I see that we have Jasper County with us today. We have both Jasper School District and Jasper County. So try not to get you guys confused today. I'm going to click on Newton, Illinois as the city. You are welcome to go down to build entity name if you see multiple entities here. In this case, in Newton, we do have Jasper County Schools, Newton Public Library, and St. Thomas Catholic School. So you are welcome to click on just your entity and click apply and filter it down more. That will matter for those of you who are in cities that have more than one school. And as you come down here to the chart, I can see that Jasper County School District has 5 buildings, 5 child sites. So 5 buildings with students in their district and a total student count of 1,218. So this is what is currently in the EPC system. If Aaron goes in and changes this total today to be 1,500 because he has more kids by chance, that number will update tomorrow. So they do nightly updates to these counts from the EPC. And I will talk about those update numbers and how that will impact when we're there filling out our updates. The total budget will be figured by $1,200 or 1,200 kids times 167, which gives a total budget of just about $240,000. Again, that is a 5-year budget. And then we come down here and we see that we have funded $57,000 of that, giving him a remainder of $182,000. If you see something in funded and then pending means you've asked for that. It's probably in your FY22 applications, but it has not yet been approved. So pending means that it's not yet been approved, but you've asked for it, and they go ahead and subtract it from your available budget. If you are finding your total budget and then you see a funded amount and you think, oh, we asked for that last year, but we never went through with that project. We never spent that money for one reason or another. There is a form to fill out to return that money back to your budget, and we can do that. That is called the Form 500. So there is a way to return money if you did not go forward with a project. But this gives you a good idea of how much you have available. Again, this available amount will last you the next 3 years. So I've got some things in the chat here I'm going to check on. So if you do not see your school, you are brand new to E-Rate, the person asking this question. So it is possible, search by city and see if it's showing up there. Also, it may just be listed under the Regional Office of Education. So you may have to kind of do a search for the main office for the regional office, what town that is in, and we can drill down to see. Because you're brand new to the program, my guess is that it's set at 25,000. And if it's not in there, we will definitely reach out to USAC and get it added. We do have several ROEs with us today. So most of you are going to find yourself in that situation because most of you do have less than 150 students. Okay, so yes, great question, Jeff. If you have another school that is listed there, but maybe isn't participating in the program, we see that a lot for our private and parochial schools. Please do feel free to reach out to them and let them know they're eligible for the program. They'll probably need to call the 800 number and get signed up, but they are more than welcome to join us here at our trainings and find out about the program and take advantage of it. One thing that I do find for some of our private schools, usually it's not the parochial schools, but some of the others, some of them have a philosophical, and some of our libraries have a philosophical opinion against filtering in their schools for some reason, or they don't accept federal funds. It's something about the way that they were created. If that's the case, these are considered federal funds, and that might be why they're not participating, but please do reach out to them and let them know they are available to participate. So yes, Kelly, the funded amount is the part that has been funded. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's been paid out yet. So it could be services and devices that you asked for this current school year that you're still waiting on receiving and billing for, but it just goes ahead and takes it off your budget right away. So it's saying in the first 2 years of our 5-year cycle, that's the amount that has been requested and approved. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've received the funding yet. So that was a great question. Thank you for that. And then Teresa, you searched by bin number and still didn't see anything. Okay, so we'll need to reach out to USAC and make sure they update their tool, make sure that they're crediting you the budget. It might be fixed today when we enter your student count. So we might see a fix tomorrow and that it's there. Okay, so year 5, Kathy, great question. Year 5 is the 25-26 school year. So we are applying for FY23. This is really important for all of our new people. ISB and the state of Illinois refer to the end year as the year. So, it's ISB's 23 right now that we're living in, but it's E-rate's 22 because they name everything with the first served year. So when we look at the 5-year budget and we say that it goes to FY25, that will be the 25-26 school year. For many of you, you may be floating around with a lot of federal funding and trying to figure out how exactly you're earmarking and spending that federal funding. You can use that federal funding for network equipment. So some of you might be saying, hey, I'm going to leverage that federal funding to pay my 20-30%, whatever your non-discount share is. That's eligible. You can absolutely do that. You may also be saying, hey, I've got this money here that I'm going to spend on updating my wireless access points this year and not spending my USAC E-rate funding. I'm going to wait and do that in the 25-26 school year when that federal funding has dried up. And that is okay as well. You can spend all of it the first year, you can spend all of it the last, or you can spend a little bit each year. It's totally up to you as a district on how you want to do that. Another great question, what if your student count has dropped? So we are going to go ahead and update the student counts today, but unless you click the button to say update my totals, it will not update your totals. So rest assured that there will be a button today that says, go ahead and update my category 2 budget. If you tell it to, because you have more students and you would therefore get more money, they will update this page. But if you don't tell it to and you say, thanks, but no thanks, I've entered my student counts, but don't update my budget, leave it as is, you will not lose money. What I don't want to happen is if you have less students and you make that change, please don't click yes on the refigure your category 2 budget because they will refigure it for lower. So we're only going to click yes on that button when we get to our demo if we have more students. Yeah, Kelly, I can help you run through what's been collected and not been collected and where we are for your district. Absolutely, we'll want to loop in a business office and know what checks have been cut. But I can help you to see what's been paid and what hasn't been paid. I have some state coordinator tools for that. So I'm going to come back here to our presentation page. And I am going to say that was our demonstration of the category 2 budget tool. Let's just pause here and see if anybody else has any more questions. Shows me I need to add a question slide here on my presentation. You're welcome to go off mute if you have a question for me. Great use of the chat though.
I'm off of mute now. This is Jim. I did the what if my student count has dropped question. So it's okay to just say yes, don't lower my amount.
Right. So what we're going to do,
and they're not going to come after me for it later.
So that was part of the program rules saying they would only they're going to set your budget for year 1 and it's going to last you the 5 years unless you ask them to recalculate it. So If you are in a school district where you have more students, so
Right.
like Salem High School reached out to me the other day and said, I do have more students, I do want the more money, then yes, we're going to absolutely click, yes, recalculate my budget. But for the rest of you, you are hold harmless. You can write on that original amount.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. That was in order to try to simplify it, was to not have your budget change from year to year, but lock it in for that 5-year time frame. It actually is supposed to lock in the first year that you spend the money. But for most of us, we've spent something of that budget thus far.
Mindy, just to confirm real quick, so we don't have to go in. I remember like when through the whole COVID thing, they locked it, like, you know, they gave us grace for a year and all of that. So I don't have to go ask my unit, you know, like for our fall housing numbers or anything like that.
So,
I can leave it.
Technically, we should start updating again. So that is, you know, right now, and I'm going to show you how to do that. That's our next demo.
So we should update it now.
Yes, I would encourage you to update it. What I'm finding is when we do update, we have a lot more students eligible for free reduced lunch in some cases than we used to. Even if the student count has not dramatically changed, we do have more kids going ahead and filling out the form and taking advantage of those free and reduced services. It might not change your discount at all when we update your numbers, but they are asking. We have had a reprieve for 2 years, so they're asking for current information this year if you have it. If you didn't update it, I don't know that anyone would yell at you, but they might ask you to update it in the PIA review process. So we're just going to try to be proactive.
And that's from our fall housing. I could ask our superintendent.
Yes. So that is typically the fall housing report. I think they call it it was November 1st due this year. And I think they call it the fall attendance report or something like that. But that's in your SIS program. For those of you who are CEP, and we had a mad rush of people signing up for the community eligibility provision this year, that is when everyone in your district gets a free lunch. So many of you were signed up for CEP before. Many of you received the free lunches through the pandemic. And then when that stopped, you said, hey, I think I'm going to go ahead and sign up my district for CEP. So you may have free lunches for everyone still. If that is the case, and you are a CEP school, there's a form that you fill out for your nutrition department once every 3 to 4 years. I can't remember if it's 3 now or 4. They did allow signups through September 30th this year. That was special. Typically, we do our signups in April 1st. So if you were previously CEP, you're going to look for a form that was filed in April sometime. If you are new to CEP, it could have been filed this fall. So CEP basically says we have identifiers of other forms instead of just filling out the form, whether that's home eligible for SNAP, home eligible for Social Security, things like that. Other indicators that indicate poverty in a household can be used to calculate the free and reduced lunch eligibility in your district. If that percentage is high enough, then you are able to get free and reduced lunch for all of your students. If that percentage is not high enough, you might not be eligible for the program. The catch that I'm told by districts is if you do CEP, you get a lesser amount. And I'm just making up these numbers here, but say if you file CEP, you get 80 cents a school lunch or something for reimbursement. If you do the traditional program, you might get 95 cents a lunch for free lunches. So school districts kind of have to do the math and make sure it's going to benefit them when they sign up for CEP, but we had a mad rush that did decide that that was going to benefit their district this year. So please do check and see if you can find your CEP evaluation worksheet or your form that you turned into ISB for CEP, because that will tell you what your CEP eligible percentage is, and that's what you'll use to update your numbers. Again, if you are one of the people with us today and you found out that we're updating numbers, but you don't have those figures, you can come back to this video and file along with our demo here in a minute and update those counts on your own. It's not a hard process. You're also welcome to reach out to me if you have questions. There are a couple of different programs before we do our next demo that will benefit some of you. So I'm going to go through them today. One of them is the Illinois K12 Broadband Network Consortium. So several of you are already taking advantage of this opportunity. Others are probably hearing about it in superintendent meetings or from the representatives that are now working with the ICN, the Illinois Century Network, to get the news out about this option. They are running an E-rate consortium for Category 1 internet access. If you decide to go ahead and participate in this and fill out two forms, one is the letter of agency, the other is the circuit information or what connectivity that you want. You are welcome to fill out those two forms. And what that does is give them permission to put your school district on their list, on their 470. So they file a 470 and include your school district, and they say, hey, providers in the state of Illinois, if you were to provide internet access from this school district back to our network, so you would then be on the state network, what would that cost? They do that bid out each year for the group of schools that they have forms on file for, and then they'll come back to you in hopefully January and say, hey, this is the deal that we have for you, school district. If you join the school net or the state network, this is the provider that we've chosen for you. We did get a response. We can connect you to our state network. And if you choose to go with the state network, we're going to pay your non-discounted share. So in essence, this means that you would have free internet, free to you, not free to the taxpayers, but the state will pick up your non-discounted share if you choose to participate in the state network. The state network is not new. It has existed for as long as E-rate. Back in the 90s, it was created. And when we very first started using E-rate and when we very first started getting our schools connected to the internet, many of you were first connected to the ICN through T1 lines. They are encouraging you to come back to the state network, hence the fact that they will pay your non-discounted share. That is transport back to their network. You then would say, yes, I accept your bid. Thank you very much, state network. And they'll take care of covering your Category 1 internet access contracts and forms for E-rate for the next 5 years. So they are signing 5-year contracts. This is a great option for some schools. For other schools, they say, I want to do the state network, but I don't really want you to bid it out. Like, I would like to bid out the option of connecting back to the state network, but I want to be in control in my bidding process of choosing who that provider is that takes it back to you. Or I want to be in control. I'll let you do that piece, that one circuit to my main office, but I want to then be in charge of choosing the provider who connects between my buildings. And so you can do that either way. It's not an all or nothing. You can say, I'll take this circuit, but not these. You can come back and you can say, thanks, but no thanks. You chose a provider that I don't really like and have had bad experiences with. I think I'm going to go ahead and do it on my own. But it is up to you. It is another option. So if you are interested in participating with the state network, please do visit their website. It is linked at the top. I think that's a link. Let's double check. Yes, it turns into a little hand. That is at illinois.gov/K12 broadband. Again, there are a couple of forms to fill out. Now, that being said, they have already bid out all the schools that they had signed up with a 470 this year. So they're ready to go for services starting July 1st of 2023. They're bidding that out right now. So they're ready to bid out the 23-24 school year and are currently receiving responses from providers. Actually, I think the deadline was last Friday. So they bid out for the 23-24 school year. If you find that you have a contract that is ending in 2024 or 2025 and you're interested, again, I really do encourage you to fill out the letter of agency and circuit information. You don't have to take the deal. My concern is for most of you who are here working as technology coordinators in your district, I want you to be able to say, I did consider it and I stuck with my provider and this is why, when your superintendent comes to you and says, why are you not taking the free internet? So there are a multitude of reasons of why people are choosing not to move with it. Maybe it increases the cost of your phones. Maybe you just have a great working relationship with your current provider and they're a local provider and you want to stick with them, and that's okay. The difference is you have to pay your non-discounted share if you file traditionally, and they will cover your non-discounted share if you decide to take their deal. I would imagine that some of you have some questions about this. So I am going to go to the questions page here in a second, and we will answer those. I expected to see some in the chat and I haven't seen it. I'll talk about the next two programs real quick and then we'll take some questions. If you get a bid back from the state network or from your own bidding process that is a new provider and they say, we would love to bring you internet and we would love to bring it to you, but it's going to cost you X number of dollars to install it. So there's a one-time installation fee, a build fee to get that internet to you. There is a program called the Illinois State Matching Grant for builds. It is just for builds, but this state grant will cover the rest of the build for you. So if you happen to be a district that say is our 40 or 50% district, it will in essence cover the remaining cost to bring that build. Many school districts are using this option to build connections between your buildings. So right now, maybe you have a 5-building district and you have a direct connection to your internet provider at each building, but you'd love to have a circuit between your buildings that would provide like a local area network between the buildings in your district. This would be a great option for that if that is not already built. In addition to that, sometimes a new provider is coming into the area and the monthly cost that they would give you is considerably lower than your current provider. This will offset the cost of the build so that you can take advantage of those new lower prices from the new provider. It is a great option. It's another few hoops to jump through in order to take advantage of it, but it works with the E-rate process. So you would work with E-rate. If you get a bid back that says, hey, it's going to cost X number of dollars to build, you would go ahead and apply for E-rate normally and say, check the box that says, I am going to apply for the state matching grant. Once we've been a few weeks past the window closing, Eric Grocke at the State Board of Education will run a report, see everyone who has checked that box on the form, and he will then initiate a process through IWAS that is for you to ask for the remaining cost to be paid for. There is currently less than $10 million available. We started with 17 million, and we have funded over 40 districts projects over the last few years. So it has been leveraged the last few years. I just want to make sure that you all know it is still there, and I'm told that it will remain there until that $10 million is depleted. We funded Chicago Public Schools already out of that project and their land connections between their buildings, and so they've already taken their share of it. It's just a little bit, honestly, that we've taken out each year because E-rate does cover the majority of the cost for most districts, and it's just paying the difference of these builds. So if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know. That can be for lit fiber ongoing services, or it can be for dark fiber or transport services that you own and control yourself at the district. So there's a lot of different opportunities to use that state matching grant if you find yourself with a bid that has a build involved. Lastly, we have some new acronyms this year for everyone to learn and think about. There are GATA, SAMS, DUNS, UEI, all of these little new acronyms. These are just forms and ways that the state and federal government are tracking how money is being spent. So you are going to need to input at some point a new UEI or SAMS ID number in E-rate. It will, it's not a set, everybody needs to update it this year kind of situation. You filled out information of how to get automatic fund transfers to you at a certain date. And when those numbers expire, they are going to go out and ask you to input those numbers again. So if you get a request that says, hey, I need a new SAMS number for you, or I need a UEI number for you, you will need to reach out to sam.gov. You can also look at ISB has some resources about these numbers and how they're using them to track things and how you go about, re-upping or regenerating your number so that you can get it. There's also an 800 number. So if you're seeing these kind of things floating around, first thing to do is go talk to your bookkeeper. You might have a new number and you just don't know it. In addition to that, if they're like, I've never heard of this either, there are a couple of websites here and an 800 number that you can call to update that information. But that is a question that I have been receiving, and I just wanted to make sure we had a slide on it with some contact information for if you need to get a new SAMS or UEI ID number. I'm going to pause and we are going to answer some questions. So Tom has said they switched over to ICN, and so far it's been great. That's great news, Tom. That is the overwhelming response that I'm getting. I do know that we had a handful of school districts this year that had a little bit of a pause in getting their service because of the supply chain demands and getting the equipment in and getting the new providers connected. So we're going to talk about that as an option when we fill out our forms this year. The one example that I did ask to be our example today is entertaining the idea. So they have put out for ICN service, and we're going to also put out for service as a plan B. So we'll be talking with Harrisburg about that.
Hey, Mindy, it's Dave. How are you?
Great, thank you. What's up?
So I had a 5-year contract with Xfinity that's expiring in June 2024.
Okay.
So last March, February, sometime around then, I had filled out paperwork filled out something, I can't remember exactly what it is, to get at least my name in, or our name into the ICN network for when that comes time. Should I do that again, or will that be sufficient?
That should be sufficient. I'm assuming when you filled out the paperwork that you filled out the LOA. When you fill out that LOA, they're supposed to come back to you and say, we also need the circuit information from you. And it was an online tool where you say, these are the addresses I need connected, and this is the speed that I want at each address. So both of those things have to be in for you to be in the bidding process.
Right. I do remember them sending me a login for something.
Okay,
it's just, I really can't remember what I did.
What you did and what you didn't do. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people. So as people are signing up for the state network, they, like I said, they need both forms. We have some time. So if you didn't get in this round, you're still okay, because they're bidding out for the 23-24 school year now, and then you would be the 24-25 school year.
Right.
It is completely possible that they went ahead and put you on this year's form. They're trying to be proactive, and if they have the application for the next year ready to go, they're bidding it out early. And the reason that they're doing that is that they recognize working with the state and installing new providers takes some time. So they want to try to give a year's notice to get like fiber built to new towns if that's necessary. So they've been a little proactive about it. So you haven't missed out if they're missing a form from you. But it's likely that you are included in their bidding process this year. That means in January, as you're moving forward with everything on your end, which I'm encouraging you to do everything as normal this year, they may reach out to you and say, hey, we have a connection for you starting July 1st of 2024. Is this a deal you want to move forward with or not? And again, that wouldn't take effect until 2024. Even for those of you who are going to be like our Harrisburg example, who your contract ends in 2023, and you're ready to make a move if you have it, I'm really encouraging everyone to go ahead and also file, because we could run into a situation where the consortium doesn't get a bid for you. Maybe the provider that serves your area forgot to check a box or something in the application form and was disqualified. I don't want you to not have an option and to just assume that they're going to take care of it for you. I really do want you to go ahead and bid out on your own so that you have a plan B. And for those of you that didn't get signed up and your services end June 30th of 2023, maybe we'll think about filing a 12-month contract instead of a multiple year contract to allow you to have that option in the future. So Carla is asking in the chat, can you use other federal funds and grants to pay for your portion of the internet and equipment? There is no rule on E-rate that says you cannot. You will want to check those federal funding options and say, hey, I've got my 10 or 15% that needs to be paid. Is that an eligible expense of that grant? So you can absolutely use your stimulus funding or your title funding, et cetera. But please do check with those program leaders and make sure that that would be considered okay. It is not considered double dipping. That's what we call braiding funds. So you're using federal funds from E-rate to pay for your primary share, and then you're using additional federal or state funds to pay for your non-discounted share. So that's not dipping in, that is braiding, not supplanting. And then T-Town just joined in. If you signed up last year and you joined in and you were currently on the state network, You do not have to file forms to continue service or anything. You are in essence in a contract with them, and they are taking care of your Category 1 applications. So if you are still here with us and you have things that you want for Category 2, we'll need to move forward and file those on your 470 today. But they are taking care of you if you are already on the state network for a 5-year time frame. I'm going to go just real quick to that, to the illinois.net website and show you guys who your contact people might be at ICN. If you want to check with them and make sure that they do have everything that you need, you're going to see these cute little kids on the main page. I'm going to click there so that it shows up as the K12 network page. Once you're on this illinois.net page, and they do have the round 4 circuits. So they do have a list here of who they asked for this year in an Excel file you can take a look at. The forms that you will need to use to apply, the letter of agency and the circuit tool. I'm looking for it. Here is your consortium data collection tool. Those are the circuits, and the letter of agency are right there on the page. They do have webinars occasionally that you can watch and learn more about the program. If you want more information or instructions, there's a link right here. But if you want to reach out to a person, which a lot of people want to do, if you come up here to the support link and click on ICN support, this is the ICN map across the state. And what they have is regional technology centers, or RTCs. There is an RTC staff link here. So you can indicate which area of the state you are in. And then if you go to the RTC staff page, there are phone numbers and emails for everybody who is in charge of those sections of the state. So you can identify an individual that you can talk to, and you can say, hey, am I signed up? What more do I need to do, etc. And they can send you to the right person or help you through signing up for that state network option. Anybody else with questions? Again, I would entertain it as an option. It's a good fit for some schools. It's not for others, and that's okay. I just really want you to have it as an option for you, so that you know what they got for you. I will be honest, there are some school districts that would like to take advantage of it, but they go ahead and they bid out, and they get a really competitive bid from their local provider that they've always used that maybe also provides them phone access. And so some that are like, I don't know that I want to go ahead and make a change. I'm a 90% discount school. I only pay that 10% to begin with. And I got a real competitive bid from my local provider. I'm just going to stick with what I've done in the past. That is okay too. Please, if you get your internet and your phones from the same provider and you are trying to decide in January if you're going to go with the consortium option, please do reach out to the provider that offers your internet and phones and find how that's going to impact your phone cost. Because just like they do for home access, they've kind of bundled your internet and phones together, and it may increase the phone cost if you decide not to go on their internet. Or you may have to get like a small internet line from that company in order to run your phones on in some cases. Again, we've got a couple other places for questions later on. If that's something that you want to ask me about, you're welcome to do so. Okay. We are now going to update our student counts. So for those of you that have a SIS report, you are looking at counts for your school buildings. So we're going to go in and update each building, how many students are in that building, as well as how many students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. USAC calls it NSLP, National School Lunch Program eligible. Your report may say FRN. So free and reduced, or FRL, free and reduced lunch. That might be the indicator on your report. Those reports also are going to give you grade by grade instead of the whole building. So you might have to kind of look through and see who's eligible in kindergarten, add it to who's eligible in first grade, add it to who's eligible in second grade for each building. So you might have to do those calculations when entering them. We're going to do a demo and we're going to come in. Do you need to update your student count numbers? They're saying yes, they're encouraging you to. It isn't something we've done the last couple of years because of the pandemic. Maybe you didn't have a lot of those forms being turned in with everything going on with the pandemic. So they kind of said you can ride on old numbers the last couple of years. I expect if you do not update your numbers this year and you're riding on something that was from the 21-22 school year or before, that they're going to ask you to do it in PIA review. So if you do it now, you will, or before they close the window down in January. They've opened it up until they open up the 471. So it's open now for you to make the changes. They will lock that down again before they open the 471. Typically, they lock it down on a Friday and open the new 471 form on that following Monday. So know that you have some time to do the updates if you don't have the report with you today, but I wanted to walk through the process for those of you who do have the numbers and what that looks like. So again, there is going to be a point where it's going to ask us if we want to recalculate our Cat 2 budget. If you have more students, by all means, say yes, you'll get more money. But if you don't have more students, just say no and don't feel guilty about it. That's how the program's supposed to work. So I'm going to escape. And I am going to log in to the portal. So I can go to usac.org. And if you're following along with me, that's what it's going to look like. I have a couple of different logins to sign in. So usac.org is the main page. And then you're going to come up here to the blue button and click sign in. So if you are CEP and you have a CEP form from 2021 or 22, they're going to be the same from the form that you're looking at, and you wouldn't have to update them. You may just be asked for that form and PIA review to prove that they're the same. Because like I said, that's a 3-year process. So you may have filled it out last year or the year before. It may not have changed. You're right, Carla. So when we log into the system, the first thing that it's going to do is give us this thing and say, hey, you're logging in with your own credentials. And when you do, that's kind of like your signature for logging in. It does go through a process of verification. That is normal. It's kind of like logging into your banking information. So this is how it's going to spell out to you how you log in. When you click continue, you will put in your username, which is your email typically, and your password. For those of you who are inheriting someone's binder, it is possible that they set up an email that is like E-rate at your school district domain. Please do check. You may be able to log in as the person that was previous as you. If not, and you have your own login, that is okay as well. Some people do set up a generic E-rate email in order to log in. That is my state coordinator account, but I did ask to get a account for a school district so I can have a live demo school for you. And I am going to go ahead and log in under that login here so I can show you what it looks like from a district perspective. Once you have entered your username and password, you will check the box below to accept that you are who you say you are, and you're going to click sign in. For those of you who have not signed in a while, it is completely possible that they will make you update your password right away. It cannot be a previous password, and it does have to have a uppercase, a symbol, and a number somewhere. So it is a higher security password. Once you click sign in, it then says, do you want to get an email? Most of you are just seeing email. You can turn on the feature to get a text message, and that is the one that I use. And on the next page, it says the phone number that we have for you ends in 7695, which is correct. And you have to click the send passcode button. So lots of people are sitting here waiting for their clue, waiting for their email to come in. You do have to click send passcode and get the green box, and then you can check your email or check your phone. So hold on a second. Just waiting for my verification code. I've also had some schools report when they're logging in that sometimes they get 2 verification codes, one right after the other when they log in. So that's something that we've seen lately. Please do make sure that you go down and see what the last one was. But I'm going to enter my code here. And click verify. Hopefully you are all getting your codes and verifying and clicking in. this will bring you to the main dashboard. So the main dashboard should show you 2 or 3 boxes right here in the middle. The first one says EPC, and that is what we use for the E-rate program. The second one is ECF, the Emergency Connectivity Fund that someone asked about earlier, and we'll talk about that option and what's going on with ECF at the end of our training today. And then some of you may see a BEAR, B-E-A-R, that is the 472 invoicing portal. So you may have 3 portal accesses here. I just have 2 because I don't have rights to the BEAR for this particular district. So once you have these 3 boxes, we're going to click on EPC, the E-rate box at the top. This is also the way that we're going to log in to fill out our forms today. So if you're logging in right now, you're all set for your login for the day. Once you click on EPC, this should look familiar to those of you who have worked in the program before. This is your E-rate application landing page. And one thing that I will tell you right away is that they have pending inquiries here at the top. That was added above notifications. So that's a small change to the system. In addition to that, there are a few more blue links in the upper right-hand corner to some forms. So they've added the service substitution and the spin change links right here to your main portal. So know that there's a couple more links there. As you scroll down, you are going to see the My Entities, which are the buildings within your district, and that's where we'll be making our changes. But before we do that, I'll let you know at the very, very bottom, you should have a customer service case. So if you've asked for any customer support cases, they'll be listed there. And at the very bottom, if you're wanting to look at a 470 to use an example from a previous year, you can pull down 470 for 2022, which is last year's application. And it should populate down here in the list. This particular district did not file one last year. They joined the consortium. I'm trying to find one when they did join. Let's try it 2019. There we go. So you find a school year that you did file a 470 and it will show up in the chart before. So if you need that as an example, or you just want to look at one before you get started today, you can do that. Again, you can look at the 471 from previous years as well. So you can see what school districts applied for in previous years and how they did that down here at the bottom. It's specific to your district. Coming back to the entities, you should see a district entity and also school buildings. There are a handful of you who only see one entity. That indicates to me that you are in the system as a single school district. You're applying as a school. Your student counts and things will be on that one page. There are only a handful of you. If Missy is with us today, she is one of them. She asks every year. The rest of you probably see a school district and at least one building underneath. Some of you will see a school district and several buildings, and it will even take you to the next page to list out the rest of your buildings. They are asking that we update our student counts on each of those buildings. So I'm going to click on the hyperlink for Hudsonville Grade School. And what you have is the status page for that particular buildings. There's a lot of information on this page, everything from latitude and longitude to student counts, etc. And to edit this page, you're going to click on Manage Organization. I have not talked about round 3 for ECF yet, so you didn't miss anything. And somebody's asking in the chat, you see a couple of different ones. Yes, you might see a district office as well as a building, or you might have 2 different buildings or programs. Because I think that was an ROE that was asking that. I got to go up on my chat and scroll and see. Okay, yes. So you may see a district office and you may see a number that is your building, or you may see if you've got 2 different serving sites or 2 different buildings in 2 different towns, like the district office number and then the district and then the office and then the 2 buildings. So that's normal. In this program, each of your program sites is considered a school underneath that heading. So again, I clicked on the link of the school. I also clicked in the upper right-hand corner on manage this entity, and now I can go ahead and I can make some changes. Maybe the name is spelled wrong and I need to go ahead and correct that. I have the ability to do that. Several years ago, we moved to 911 addresses for several schools, and this is where we could go ahead and update the physical address to that. When you scroll down, you should see school information. And under school information, it is going to ask you, how many students do you have? And what is your total number eligible for the free and reduced lunch program? So you're going to enter the total number of students from your IWAS report and the total number for eligibility for National School Lunch Program. If you're one of our private schools that does not use National School Lunch Program, you may have an alternative discount method. So you're doing a survey or something. You're doing some kind of combination that is not CEP. So it's not technically CEP, but some other kind of survey. That is allowed, and you can use an alternative service method. If you are CEP, you're going to want to check the CEP button, and it will change the boxes over here on the right. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure. It will ask you for the percentage from that CEP form, and then it will ask you what year was that filed. So it's possible that you're writing on a previous year that was filed in 2020. You would put in that 60, 80%, whatever it says on your form, and you would pick that year. You do not have to put in the state school code and LEA code, but some of you have that in there. This is just the RCDT code for your school. If you have it, you can enter it, not a big deal. So again, it is just the full-time number of students on the left and the total eligible for the free and reduced lunch on the right. It's really the only thing that we need to update here. Again, they do the math and take this, in this case, the 106 over the 207, and they calculate what percentage is eligible for free and reduced lunch. And that is how we get our discount total. Down at the bottom, it asks you for category 2 information. Again, this is your total number of students. So this number should match whatever you're updating this number to. Where did it go? This number. Again, if it's less than you had before, you can either leave that number the same or you can change it. Just don't say yes on the do you want to recalculate button. I'm going to change it to 206. And then when I click submit, it says, what change did you make? So it just wants you to say, update totals. Demo. And I'm not seeing the pop-up on this page quite yet for the recalculations. That must be on the district page. Again, scroll down and make sure your numbers did update. And then you're going to go back to reports in the blue bar at the top and landing page and go back and do your next building. And you're just going to move through the buildings. If you have buildings that are listed here as a district office, a bus barn, an athletic facility, they will not have direct student counts. So you do not need to update those. You just need to update each building. I'm going to give everybody a minute to go ahead and do that and give you a chance to ask any questions if you have them about this process. For those of you who have district offices that are not a part of your building. So I'm starting to see this more common. Where the district office is now in a separate building across town. It's no longer part of the grade school or the high school. If you find yourself in that situation, I highly encourage you to add an entity to your profile, to call that 888 number and ask them to add your district office or your bus barn or your, special services building or anything else that you might have. Sometimes they add them as a whole new entity. Sometimes they add them as an annex to an entity because they share the same students with another, with the main school. That just allows you the flexibility if you ever have to build a separate circuit to that building or get internet access for that building that is eligible for the program. It's just a little cleaner on the USAC side to know that that's not sharing a space with one of your other buildings. And yes, athletic facilities are also count as an annex or a separate entity. They call those non-instructional facilities, but they are eligible for the program. So when you say, can I add an entity for our district shop, you mean like a career tech ed shop program? Yes, I think is what you're saying. I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to. Maintenance. Oh, yes, you can add a maintenance building, bus barn or something like that if you would like to, if it's a separate facility. And then you could get that internet that you pay for that building is reimbursable by the program. So you can get a discount on that internet.
Mindy, I'm sorry, can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, it's Teresa from Peoria. And when we started this last year, we had to go in and get a BEN number, and we had to go through all that. And so I have one. So on this main page, it shows two. So it shows the Regional Office of Education Peoria, which is what we established last year because that has the entity number. The second one is all spelled out, Peoria County Regional Office, blah, 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 and it has a different entity number. When I click on the one that we established last year, and I go down to the end of the page, it's taking me back to that original, the original entity that was already there. So should I just do everything under that entity number?
Yes, probably. What it sounds like is we set up the new entity number and they set it up as a building underneath your district. And so that original entity number is the, like parent entity and like the district office in their opinion, and where the one we set up last year is a program underneath. So does that one that you're linking on look like a building to where you can change those student counts?
Yes, if I go to the, if I go to the original one,
You can change the student counts. Okay.
I can change it on the original.
Yep. Let's go ahead and update those student counts on there. And that's probably why we are not receiving, I'm guessing that it has no students. And that's probably why we don't see a budget on the other one. Knowing that yours was newly set up and not showing up in that category 2 budget tool, maybe don't submit at the end of today. And let's take a look at it first before we submit our 470.
Okay. So that's what my next question is. If I have to get to the right one. So if I click on this one,
while you're talking, I'm going to go ahead and click on the district one because we did each building. And now I want to take a look at Hudsonville School District as a total here. Again, this is the district entity and it looks just a little bit different. There's not like any place to update individual student counts, but there is a question about category 2 at the bottom. And what it asks you is, do I want to use one number for my whole district, or do I want to use a number for each school in the district? So this goes back to the question that I was giving you guys earlier, where I said, if you have more than 11 buildings in your district, it needs to know how to calculate it. For everybody that has less than 11 buildings, it's really not going to matter because they're going to do it by total students. But this one says number for each school in the district, because this one has a school building that has less than 150 students. So to edit this, you're going to again click on manage organization. And it's going to give that as an option to change. And then if you come down here to the category 2, it says a number for each district. And this is adding up what your other pages give you. And now you can see where they got that total of 304. This is a really small district. One that has less than 150 students and one that has more. So for the one that is more, they're going to take that 167 times 206. And for the one that is less, they're going to get that $25,000 amount. And so that's how they're calculating this 304 and how they're figuring this district. Let me see here if I click submit, if I get that. No change. And submit. Again, if you change those numbers, it's supposed to. I hate it when it doesn't do what I want it to on a demo. It's supposed to pop up and ask you, do you want to update the category 2 budget? If anybody gets that and you have decreased your student number, say no. If you have increased your student number, say yes, and you'll get more money. So Melody, this is the perfect time to add that new building. If you don't have any of their internet there at the maintenance building, but you would like to have it there, let's go ahead and get it added to your profile before we file our 471. And you can even add that as a new address today on your 470 and ask for internet at that building. Great question from Jasper County. In the past, you can choose to whether you want to include your pre-K students or not. It's still up to you. So in the state of Illinois, the decision was made to allow school districts who have pre-K students on campus to count them or not. It's your choice. Some states say no, pre-K doesn't count at all. In Illinois, we say you can count pre-K if you want to. So if you have those pre-K totals on your page, you are allowed to count them in your grand total. So they count in an assist report as one FTE, even though you might see them half day. So go ahead and include them if you'd like to. Some of the programs in our state that don't reside inside a school district are unfortunately not eligible to participate in a program. So even our Head Start programs in our state, if they do not reside inside a district, they do not count towards E-rate. So you have to be housed inside a school in order to be eligible. And then it's up to you. Some people count those pre-K kids because it gives them more money and it gives them higher rates. But some people find that in their pre-K program, you have less percentage of free and reduced lunch rates because you're not giving them lunch. So you're not asking them to fill out the forms. And so that could count against your discount count. So that's why it's up to you. If it works in your favor, absolutely count them. If it doesn't, or you don't have those numbers, you do not have to. Yeah, so if you have, that was a great question. If you have a lower student count or more free and reduced lunch, it's going to adjust your discount. It could potentially adjust your discount rate. So if you have a lower count and this is what we're entering the numbers for is your discount rate. That pop-up that asks, do you want to recalculate your category 2 budget is not going to matter. So if you find that you have less students and you have more that are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and you're currently a 70% district, that might bump you up to 80%. That would be a win for you. And it still doesn't impact that category 2 budget unless you said, yes, recalculate. So we're in essence updating our numbers for the discount rates here. We are not updating our numbers for the category 2 budget unless you click yes. So if you are getting any kind of, mixed information from your district office, like you're entering the information and now you're concerned, it is totally okay. You can push pause on this process and continue to do these updates and make these changes all the way until January. So you can go back and revisit and talk to somebody. Do I want to include my pre-K? Do I not? My numbers of my discount rate are looking like they're better, but I don't want to mess up my category 2. Or, hey, I just want to shoot Mindy an email and talk through the changes that might take place with these change in numbers. You're welcome to wait and do that. I just wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to make the change now so you could see what that looks like here in our training. Chris, do you have a question for us? Okay, it looked like you might have some. Again, just updating the numbers here. And now I'm going to take any questions you might have about logging in, updating numbers, anything else that's come up. You guys are doing a great job about asking questions within the workshop. So some of my groups aren't like that. I find the just-in-time questions are easier asked and answered. Right, that's great. Okay, so the next thing is what we're all here for today is filing our Form 470. So we're going to jump in here and we're going to do the actual 470 and request services for next year. Again, I said it before and I'm going to say it again because I mean it. The 470 is a wish list. Nothing is set in stone. If you say on this 470 this year that you are interested in having 23 new switches. And then in some communication on the back end, once you get the prices back and the bids, you decide, yep, nope, not something that we want to do this year. We want to hold off and do that next year or the year after. That is totally okay. Nothing here locks you into anything. It is just asking for a bid and receiving those bids. If you want to go ahead and file, just like the consortium is filing a 470 for you, you can file as many 470s as you want. So just because they're filing for you does not mean that you can't file. If you are not already using the consortium services this year, I would encourage you to go ahead and file your own 470, to go ahead and say, I want to see what it's going to cost to continue internet access at my district. That is going to give you a comparison bid in case they don't get one for you, or in case for some reason you decide to just play it out a year and give it another year and see before switching. You may decide that you like the bid that you receive, and that is okay. You also should bid it out if you are really you're kind of planning to go with the ICN network, but you're nervous that it might be a new provider. So the example that we are going to use from Harrisburg here in a bit, their plan is to move over to the consortium. It's something that they've been discussing the last couple of years. However, if they switch and their current provider is not who is chosen by the consortium, there may be a delay in getting the service to them. There may be a build or something that has to happen to get a new provider to their district. If that's the case, I want them to be able to have month-to-month service on a 471 so that they can cover the costs if they're incurred. If you never get the cost, if they switch over as of July 1st and there's no delay in install, that's fantastic. We just won't ask for the money. We'll just let it ride there. But if you don't file a 470 for that, you can't cover those intermediate costs in between. We call those transitional costs. We'll actually call them transitional on the 471 so that it's clear that we are using those, putting that cost in there for the transition. Your Form 470 should be open to all vendors. I know many of you have a favorite vendor or two that you typically use to purchase your items. You are opening this to all vendors. As such, you need to be generic in your request and allow any vendor to reply to you. You don't have to, you do have to accept their bid, but they do not have to win your bidding process. We're going to use a rubric at our 471 training. We're going to show you how to evaluate bids, and you can have some factors in your bid in addition to cost that are going to allow you to compare those bids and pick a winning bid. You do have to be open to all bidders. Even if it's your ex-brother-in-law's tech company that you don't want to go with, you still have to accept a bid from them and answer their questions. This is an open bidding process. You may use and talk to your current provider that you buy things from to say, hey, maybe I'm a bookkeeper and I'm not geeky. What do you think I might need? You are welcome to go out and have those questions and then use that to form your wish list. So there are several providers that do readily provide those lists of, hey, this is what you might think about for E-rate to your schools. It's fine. You can use that list as a suggestion of what you might need, but that doesn't prohibit Sam's Computing on the Corner from replying with your request as well. If you are applying for internet, in particular, if you are one of our schools that wants to do a self-provision or self-owned internet option, or a dark fiber option, which would be under the control of the district to manage, and the network equipment for that is then managed by the district, not by the internet provider, you are welcome to apply for that. That is E-rate eligible. However, there is a program rule that says if you're going to build out a dark fiber option or a self-provisioned option, you must also bid out lit fiber as a comparison. You will be asked in the review if you want to own it yourself to show that it is more cost effective for you to own it, maintain it, etc., than it is to just get it off the regular market for a lit fiber solution. So you do have to bid both of those out. Providing a make and model as a suggestion is always a good rule of thumb. So if you know that you want a Cisco 5100 router, say I'm interested in a Cisco 5100 router or equivalent. That allows providers that sell Cisco to go ahead and bid. It also allows providers that sell Aruba to go ahead and to give you a model number and service. If you just say, I want a Cisco router, and you don't give a model number, you're likely going to get some questions and responses of people saying, but what model number are you interested in? How many circuits are you providing? And more detail about those particular models. If you really don't care about the make and model, in particular for switches and things like that, I highly encourage you to say, I want 5 24-port switches and 2 48-port switches. Like, at least know what you're asking for in the switches, how many ports you're talking about, whether that's power over Ethernet, meaning it's powered by the Ethernet lines. It doesn't have to be also plugged in. Maybe you have the old model that you want to say currently have such and such, looking for that or equivalent. Maybe the 500 is no longer the new model and the 800 is, and they're going to bid back on that. But it does give the providers who are bidding some kind of an indication of what you're looking for. Maintenance is not replacing stuff. So we've seen this, lots of different problems in the background of people who asked for maintenance if they were like wanting to replace a UPS device. If you're replacing a device with a new device, that is internal connections. If you are wanting to change something out, get something fixed, get update licensing and things like that, support for something, that is maintenance. It is likely if you apply for maintenance that they are expecting to see on an invoice at the back end something that says X number of hours of work on a product. Not, I got a new UPS or I got a new switch. They're looking for service that was on that switch or UPS. So know that maintenance is work or a license that gives support, not replacing devices. Even though you're saying, hey, I'm going to do maintenance on my wireless network and replace the wiring, you in essence are not asking for maintenance. You are asking for new wiring, and that is internal connections. That's been a big thing that we've seen people get approved for, because it looks like on the bids that you're getting something maintained, but then on the back end, when they actually got new wiring or new switches or new UPSs, they didn't get it paid for on the back end because the invoice showed it was new items. That's a great question in the chat. If you have a relationship with a vendor who's maybe not very good about monitoring the E-rate system, it is totally okay for you to send them an email after you file your 470 and say, hey, filed a 470 today. So that they are aware and can get into the system and look for it. Or if you get down to the end of your 28 days, so we're filing today on December 1st, if you get to the end of December and it's January and you haven't gotten any bids, it is totally okay to go out to your local provider and say, hey, can I please get a bid for, a such and such switch as a result of my 470, and they can give that to you. So it's okay to send out a reminder. It's okay to go out and ask for a bid, especially if you haven't received any. We did have some struggles the last couple of years with one of our state providers who normally responded to bids and were not very responsive for some reason last year. So even if it's a national provider that operates in our state or outside of our state that you normally work with, a CDW, an SHI, somebody like that, Bytespeed, et cetera, you can feel free to reach out to them if you don't see a bid from them. Network management is eligible. So if you pay a company to maintain your network and keep track of your network and up and running for you, that is an eligible expense. That amount is going to come off of your 5-year budget. So what I'm finding for school districts that do the maintaining of the network, it kind of sucks up your 5-year budget with that maintenance. So then you don't have money for stuff. You can decide as a school district, do I want to pay that annual fee for my maintenance, or do I want to get new stuff and pay that annual fee or, that monthly fee for maintenance out of something else? If that same company also maintains your end user devices, they manage your Google domain, they fix your keyboards when your little kiddos break them, they're going to need to separate that out. And most of our providers in the state are really good about that. They can tell you what is E-rate eligible and what is maintaining the network versus what is not E-rate eligible and is maintaining the individual devices. So it might not cover your whole contract, but please do communicate with your provider that does that for you, and they'll be able to give that back to you. We've had some school districts that have decided to go ahead and cover that monthly some maintenance work. And then we've had some network management. And then we've had some that have said, no, I'm just going to cover that out of other funds because I want to be able to readily and timely replace my routers 1 year, my switches the next, my wireless access point year 3, that kind of thing. It's always good to have a plan. Can you decide on invoicing? Whether you're going to do the invoicing, pay the whole bill and turn it in yourself versus whether you're going to pay your portion and let them turn it in is totally up to you. That is not something that you specify here in the 470 or 471, but if you know that all you want to do is pay your portion and you are requiring them to do a 474, meaning you're requiring them to bill USAC for the difference and you only want to pay your 20, 30, 40%, whatever your discount is, say that in your notation of the form. And I'll show you where to put that. You can say only providers that will do the 474 SPY invoicing are accepted. Or you can say points will be given in the rubric to those who are willing to do the 474. In other words, if you're going to do that billing and invoicing piece for me, you're going to get 10 more points than your competitors because I don't want to mess with that. So feel free to say that in your rubric. That's on the screen that I'm on now with my presentation. That's called disqualifications and deadlines must be noted. You can definitely say, I'm going to give more points for that, or I'm going to disqualify it if you say you won't do the 474. Your drop-down choices need to match your RFP. So if you were putting in an attached document, which is not required for everything, but if you are putting in an attached document that has the details and says, I want 5 switches, your drop-down has to say 5 switches. If you want 5 switches and 2 UPSs and 3 routers, in your RFP, you have those listed out. You also need to list them out on the pull down. I don't see discrepancies on this very often when it comes to equipment, but I do when it comes to internet access. So if your RFP says, I want self-provisioned, self-owned fiber, I want dark fiber options, and I want lit fiber. All 3 of those need to be offered and in your pull down. And I'll show you what that looks like when we come in for our example. If in your RFP you say you want transport only, that is what you need to select in the pull down. So it is very clear you need to match your pull down to your RFP. If you don't have it in the pull down, it will not save you in a PIA review. They will come back and say to you, sorry about it. I know it was in your RFP, but it wasn't listed in the pull down, and that's considered a competitive bidding violation. Many of the providers get a report that tells them what was listed in the pull down only, and they'll only go out and seek and look at RFPs when it matches what they're able to provide in the pull downs. So it is really important that we have those things listed in your chart. Please do cover all the bases. I'm going to show you there is a new check button that appeared last year. When you ask for equipment, there's another thing that says, what about maintenance on this equipment? I'm going to encourage you to always check that box so that you get the equipment, and any licensing that might go with it that might be considered support or maintenance would also be eligible. And I'm also going to really encourage you and walk you through what those lease-lit options look like when you want to own something yourself. It is totally up to you how many 470s that you file, but you have to keep track of them. So if you are filing one big 470 that has all of your category 1 and category 2 on it, you are welcome to do so. Most people file one 470 for a Cat 1, another one for Cat 2. Some people will file one 470 for Cat 1, and if you have specific projects for Cat 2, like one is a wiring project, you might do a separate one for that and a separate one for routers or switches, etc. Some people will do one for each building. It is totally up to you on how many you file, but you can file them all on one if that's what you would like. The thing is, when we get to our 471, we will have to put in on the 471, where did the 470 come from that matched that up? So then you just have to make sure you enter the correct 470 number for what you're asking for on your 471 and line those 2 up. So sometimes it's easier if you're not asking for a lot to put it all on one 471, Cat 1 and Cat 2 all on one. But again, you can do it as separate. For Harrisburg that we're going to work with today, we did a separate 471 for everything for their new building last year, just so it wouldn't hold up the processing of everything else that they were asking for, annually for their district. Again, any kind of disqualifications or deadlines. If you don't want anybody to bother you after the 28-day window, if you're looking at it today and you're like, it's December 1st, I'm going to make my decision on December 29th. I'm not going to be working that week. But if you want to, and you want to make that decision that day, you can absolutely say, all bids must be in by this date. That is a qualification. If you are doing a wiring project and you want people to come out and take a look at your building, but you don't want them coming willy-nilly whenever they feel like it, you can say a site visit for visiting my grade school for the wiring project will be January 5th. You may get extra points if you come to that site visit, but no other dates will be allowed. January 5th is it. So come on January 5th or don't come. You may say that, and you may have those disqualifications or things in your text box. Anytime you make a change, so say you're in that situation where you're allowing people to come out, walk through your building, and somebody walks through your building and says, hey, you said you needed 32 new drops. That's where we're going to put a line, 32 lines in your building. And walking around your building, I think you would be better served by putting 2 in each classroom. And so that's going to double that. And that's going to make that 64 drops instead of 32. If that's the feedback that you get and you're going to make that change and you're going to want to move forward with entertaining bids that are the 64, you really need to then go back in and reset your clock and tell everybody that's bidding, I want 64 instead of 32. Honestly, that's a significant enough change. I would file a new 470 at that point and say, I'm going to do a new 470 for those 64 drops instead of the 32. So if you have a major change, and that's relative term. So if you have a change that is going to be significant, I would encourage you to restart the clock and or file a new 470 to make sure everybody has a fair shot of bidding. The hardest things for me to fight in helping you in appeals are competitive bidding violations, because that is just, they're very, very sticklers about it. So I am ready to get in here and file a 470. Natalie, do you want to send me an email with your login information, or do you want to share your screen and log in and be our example? It's totally up to you.
Either way is fine. Last year, I think that I sent you mine, and that might be easier because you're so familiar with all of the drop downs.
It is totally up to you. So I'm going to pause my sharing, stop my sharing for a minute while we get logged in.
Okay.
And again,
I'll send you my information through email.
Okay. And I'm going to log out as our previous example. And we will log in as Harrisburg instead of Hudsonville. So gather your stuff. Again, to log into the system, if you didn't log in before, it is just usac.org and then log in. And I promise not to break anything of Natalie's system. While I'm logging in, if you need some more caffeine or sugar, now's the time. And likely, Natalie, it will send you a code here in a minute. Okay, sending you an email code. turn off my email and go back to sharing my screen. Where did my little box go? Okay. We're going to enter the code. And verify. Okay, I am in. So let me get back to sharing my screen. Gotta find where my tools are. More and share screen. There we go. Okay, so now we are logged in as Natalie. Thank you to Harrisburg School District for being our example today. I went through the list of who was attending and chose Harrisburg because I knew that they were going to be in the market for signing a new contract this year. So that gives us some more things to show of what we need this year. Again, when you're logged in, you'll have the 3 boxes. It is that first box, the E-Rate Productivity Center. And you're here in the portal. And so once we are here in our portal page, again, if you need an example from a previous year, you're welcome to come down here at the very bottom to go to the 470 for a previous year. And we could use any of these examples that we have last year to help guide us through if you were doing it on your own. But since we're all doing it together, we're just going to go up to the upper right-hand side and say, hey, I would like to file a new Form 470. When you click on the new Form 470, it automatically creates one for you. So if you were just following along today, it will create a draft or something for you. It will show up in your tasks menu, which is up here in the blue bar at the end of the day. So several people will say task 6 or task 7 because you've clicked on forms to just kind of take a look at what they look like, and it will automatically save them for you. If at any time you want to go in and get rid of those other examples, you're just going to open them up from tasks and click discard form. So if you're doing a sample today, you can name it sample, etc. So what is our naming structure, Natalie? What do we normally name these? I think it's HBG 470 FY 20. This would be our 23-24. Okay. Do you want to do one for Cat 1 and one for Cat 2 or all of it on one? What are you thinking?
Okay. So I need a couple of things here, and you can do it however you'd like. We want to file month-to-month service.
Okay, transitional service.
So that's our plan B, because we want to have a comparison bid between IC and network and just a backup plan.
Okay.
And then we also want to do the firewall box and try for filtering. And we're hoping that that new list comes out, and that might be something that they would actually not deny this year.
Okay, so I happen to know your district does has a current box. Are you asking for a brand new filter or a brand new firewall this year? Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's awesome. So I'm going to suggest, because of your transition, that we do an example of Cat 1 and then an example of Cat 2 for everyone for this situation. Again, when we get in there, if you want to do both on the same, that's fine. I am naming this Cat 1 in the name so that I can keep track of them separately for her in her list. So we're going to click on Save and Continue. And then that is going to just confirm for us, this is Harrisburg School District. That is your build entity number. And we're going to just click on Save and Continue to move forward. The next thing it says is there a consultant? So if you were working with a consultant, that consulting firm might show up here. If you are no longer working with your consultant, reach out to me and I can show you how to remove that consultant from your form. Many people break a contract with a consultant, but leave them access and keep them on for, the next year or so in case there's any loose ends to tie up, and you're welcome to do that as well. It says, are you the main contact person? Pretending that I'm Natalie, I'm going to say yes. Congrats, Natalie. You are the main contact person. If you are not the main contact person for your district, but you're filing this form and you're really wanting to give it over to somebody else, now's your time to say no and enter a new person in your form. I just, every time I say that, I sense people who are retiring this year with a new person sitting next to them, and they start to get super excited and they're like, yay, new person. Let's put you in. We're going to click Save and Continue. And this is where we indicate by checking it category 1 and category 2. So just make blue, whichever one you're going with. If you're going to put your category 2 in here, you're going to have to bear with us as we start a new one for our category 2 in a minute, and then you'll see those category 2 examples. Going to click save and continue once more. And it says, do you have an RFP? Let's talk about this for a minute. Some of you might have an RFP. So say you're rewiring a building, you have a new building being built, you're running to do some network equipment for those buildings. You're just in the habit of doing RFPs in your district, which is totally fine. That's the way your district works. You can say yes and put in an RFP. You are not required to use an RFP in the program unless you are applying for self-provisioned or dark fiber connections. So self-provisioned and dark fiber do require an RFP. Everything else in RFP is optional. So if you have an RFP, you would click on yes, and then you would upload it here. In this case, we're going to say no because Natalie's just asking for internet access. This 470 will be her RFP in essence. So it will take the place of an RFP and do the open bidding for her. We're going to click save and continue, and notice my blue bar across the top will continue to move and show me where I am in the process along the way. Service requests for category 1. So you're going to, in essence, build a chart here at the top and the narrative boxes for everything we're asking for. So I'm going to click on add a new service request to add something to my chart. And this is where we start our choose your own adventure. So switch into a bottle of water. The first question you are asked is, I seek bids for internet access and data transmission service, or I seek bids for category 1 network equipment, maintenance, and operations. If you own your own network and you are replacing the head-end equipment that lights your fiber, or ongoing maintenance on a network that you owned, you would click on number 2. And then your options change and it says, I lease my own network, or I lease my own network and want maintenance. So then it kind of breaks it down. For most of you, you're going to check the first one that says, I seek bids for internet access and data transmission. Then your options say, I seek bids for any kind of internet, meaning I will take cable, DSL, copper, satellite, etc. Or I seek bids for just the data transmission without service, meaning just a line to take me back to the state network. If I choose this very first one, I will get the options of I want service offered by one provider as a bundled package, or I want air cards. This gets people excited every year and they think, hey, this is like the MiFi devices that I can send home with my students. No, those are not eligible for this program. So do not say you want the Wi-Fi eligibility. This typically is only eligible for our really, really small rural districts or like ROE programs that don't have wired internet access, and they're funding their whole program by the MiFi devices or Wi-Fi. That's a Verizon brand, so I shouldn't do that. But the little access points from a wireless provider, that the only way those are eligible is if you have no other form of internet. So I'm going to come back up here and say, no, that's not what I wanted. I'm actually interested in transport only, because in Harrisburg's situation, they are already using the Illinois Century Network. They have for years. They've always used them as their service provider. They are currently applying for and have been transport back to them. ICN is also bidding them out for transport back to them. Our concern is that their current provider will not be chosen. And if that's the case and they switch to a different provider and they win that bid and there's a transition period, we just want to make sure we've covered our monthly cost for that change. So a great question in the chat. If you signed a new contract last year with someone or the year before and you're in the middle of a contract, you don't need to file a 470. for that service. You can file a 470 for ongoing, for products and services for category 2 if you would like. But if you're in the middle of a contract, you don't need to bid out again. We only file a 470 when we're asking for new services. Now, if you have a contract with someone and you're thinking, hey, I might need, I might want more bandwidth. Like maybe you have a 100 megabit line and you're thinking about going to 200 megabit. You can file for like increases of bandwidth, but otherwise you can just claim that original 470 on our 471 next year. So you'll say, on the 471, I want to continue my contract, and oh, I filed that in 2020 or I filed that in 2019 and link that one. I had some of you messaging me directly and some of you messaging me in the open chat. So that's the same answer for you both. If you are in a contract, you do not have to file a 471 for ongoing service. I have a contract. Okay, so if you currently have a contract, but it is ending June 30th of 2023, then you would say, I'm asking for I-Seek bids for internet access. Okay, let me show you. Let me show you on the screen what you would do for that. So that would be I-Seek bids for internet access from the first one. And then on yours, you would say the top one. Yes, I-Seek bids for all of these services. And then you're going to say the top one here, which is ongoing service. So a normal lit fiber service from a cable or internet provider would look like this. Internet access of all kinds, and internet access bundled. So that would be what you would do. In this case, we're going to come back to this one and say data transmission only. Then at the bottom, it says, what is your minimum and maximum capacity? Meaning how much internet do you need? First of all, let me point out that the gigabits are right there at the top. So a gigabit, 1 gigabit is 1,000 megabits. So please know the difference between your M's and your G's here. For many of you, you have connections that are down here in the megabit range, 200 to 500 megabits, but we're seeing a lot more schools move to the gigabit range. What do you currently have, Natalie? You're muted.
Okay, we're 1 gig.
You are currently 1 gig. Okay.
Yeah.
So my recommendation to everyone is what your current level is. Please put that as your minimum. And then your maximum, give yourself some room for growth. I would put 5 or 10 gig. What do you want me to put?
10.
10. Okay. Just in case you want to move up. So this gives you some flexibility. If you were signing a new 5-year contract, if something fell through with the state network and she needed to sign a new contract, she could sign a 5-year contract and grow all the way up to 10 gig without filing a new 470. So that's what that gives you your range for. I highly encourage you, if you're filing for a 100 megabit or a 200 megabit connection, that you make your maximum capacity a gigabit, because we are finding really good pricing at that gigabit amount right now. And that would allow you to take advantage of getting double the internet for almost the same price for some of you.
So 6.
The number of entities, how many do you have?
Okay, so we have 6, and that's including our central office.
Okay, central office and then the 5 school buildings, right?
Yep.
Okay. For those of you who wanted to add the maintenance building or the athletic complex, or et cetera, you could include those in your total as well. And are you seeking installation, activation, and initial configuration? If you were asking for a brand new contract for anyone that comes to you, you would say yes if you want to be able to cover that installation cost. In this case, we're just doing transitional services for you, Natalie. So I'm thinking we're going to say no, because we're going to try to kind of limit the amount of bids that we get. You may still get bids from some of the providers in your area. So in the Harrisburg area, you could get Futiva, you could get Clearwave, you could get Frontier. So there's still several providers. If you say you don't want installation, that might limit it to maybe your current provider. We're going to click Save Request and go back to this page. And now you can see that this is on my chart. So I'm going to do another one and then delete it just to show the people who are doing the current, like I want to do lit fiber solution. Again, if this is for transport, and notice that it says transmission or internet access standalone internet access service. No, that's not what I wanted. So hold on. See, I did it wrong for you. Check the box and click edit. We wanted transport, not standalone internet access. This is not a common selected thing. That's right, because I did the wrong one. Okay, let's delete it and do it again. At least it warned me. I just wasn't paying attention. Okay, add a new service. Let's do Natalie's correct first. I seek bids for internet access and transmission. I seek access bids for transmission service only. And I seek data transmission service without internet access. That's what we meant to do. One line. The minimum was a gigabit and the maximum was 5, right? Sorry for messing that up.
I think we said 10.
Oh, 10, right. Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. And no, we don't want to include. This is warning me that data transmission does not have internet access. We're not worried about that because we know we're going to get it from ICN one way or the other. But for some people, that does matter. So if you were in the, I'm looking at my map so I can say it right. Internet 39, I-39 and I-80 corridor. If you were in districts from that area, you might be applying for them separately. Transport and internet access separately. Many of you have iFiber and NIUnet, and they're separate things. So if you're looking at a previous form, it would be transport just like this, and then internet access just like I did. For most of you, a bundled service or any types is what you want, and we'll do that example next. So I'm saving that request. Now I'm going to do a bundled service, which is the typical one. I seek bids for internet access for any kind of internet access service, and either bundled together or separately. That covers all of your options. That allows anybody to bid for you and come back with an option for you. Again, you're going to say how many lines that you need. In this case, it would be 1. And then we would do the gigabits, 1 gigabit and 10 again. And then I'll delete that in a minute. Are there any questions for what that looks like? Is there anybody who says, hey, this is what I chose, and is this correct? Great question in the chat. If your current service is 250, please choose 300. No, actually, please choose the minimum is 200, but the maximum anything above 300 so that you can cover that.
Mindy, I have a quick question. James Toth at Salem High.
Hi, go on.
Hi, I'm looking at my 470 from 3 years ago, which is when I started my 3-year contract with Wabash. And under the function, I had lease lit fiber with or without internet access. But now when I'm doing this, it's under the function for this year, it's saying internet access and data transmission service. Is that just a change in wording? Or
it is a change in wording. So this last one that I just did, that was where it says, if your chart looks like my second option here,
yes,
to where it says internet access and data transmission service, that is the new lease lit fiber. So it was determined somewhere along the way that we weren't being open-minded enough. And we were specifically saying fiber, and we shouldn't specifically say fiber because it should be open to cable providers who can't give you a gigabit. So it doesn't really matter. They either have to do that via fiber or not. But that's beside the point. To make it more open-minded, they changed that wording.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So I'm looking here. Did I answer the question about quantity? Did you understand what that was? That's how many lines. So if you have 1 line that goes into your district, obviously that's 1. That is what Harrisburg is applying for here. If you have 3 buildings and they all have separate lines to the internet, you would say 3. So if you're looking at, like, for example, one of the districts I worked with last week has internet to 1 building, their grade school, internet to the other building, their high school, and a line in between their buildings that they run their phone and communications on. That is 3 lines, even though there's 2 buildings. So kind of think in your head about what your network looks like and put that down as your quantity. Some people will apply for internet access, the second one, as 1 line into the building, but then they'll do data transmission service transport only between their buildings. So there might be 3 lines of transport. Happy to talk through those scenarios. Again, we talked about the capacity. So yeah, if you're at 250, which we see that a lot, please choose 200 as your minimum. If your IT director wants 3 gigabits, oh yeah, go with 2 and 5. And then you can get a 3. You could say, we are seeking bids for 2 gigabit, 3 gigabit, and 5 gigabit in your narrative. We're going to get to your narratives here in a second. So Jeff, the question is, include yes for installation or not? I would typically say yes. I want installation, because if a new provider comes to you with a better monthly rate and they charge you $100 or whatever to install, you want to be able to claim that. In the case of Harrisburg, they're really switching over to the Illinois Century Network. So if they say, no, I don't want installation, that might make the other providers that are not our current providers not bid on it, and they'd have less to consider. Ooh, great question. So if you just want somebody to do some locates or do some maintenance on your self-owned lines, let me add that so I can show you what that looks like in the chart. So you would then in that case say new service request. I seek bids for category 1 equipment or maintenance. So running some maintenance on your lines to identify where they are, et cetera, would be maintenance on those lines. And then you would say, I own or lease my own network and I want maintenance. The first one is new equipment. So if you needed to replace your head-end switches, that's eligible. So the switches and routers that you're using to light your equipment is the first one. The maintenance on those lines is the second. And then you would want to fill out the capacity underneath. Hopefully that answers your question. There are more and more of you that own your own lines. So that is a good thing to put down there. That also includes monthly maintenance. So some of the internet providers, when you bought your lines, put in your connection for you. You own it, but they want to charge you like a monthly fee, like an insurance fee in case a farmer comes through and breaks your lines. That includes that as well. All right, not seeing any more questions in the chat. I'm going to come back in here and delete the one that we do not need, which is the second one for Natalie. And then I'm going to come down here to the narrative. Natalie, you are seeking internet access and interested in month to month $12-month contract options. Don't freak out. You do not have to move forward with a 12-month contract. I just want to make it an option. All right. So month-to-month payment and 12-month contract options. And the reason that I'm saying this, for those of you who are looking for your transitional Plan B service, I want you to be able to look at what a 12-month option is and what the month-to-month option is and haggle a little bit with your people who respond. So if your 12-month option comes back and they want to charge you $1,000 a month, but their month-to-month option is $2,000 a month, I want you to be able to go, wait, why? Right? I want you to have that as leverage. Sometimes if you then find out from the Illinois Century Network that they're choosing a new provider for you and they say to you, hey, Sam's internet is taking a really long time to get their installs done. So did you apply for transitional Plan B service? You could say, yeah, I did. Maybe I'll sign a 12-month contract at the lesser rate, right? It just gives you 2 options. Again, this is a wish list, but it literally tells your provider, I don't want you to give me a 36 or 48 month contract here. I'm not looking for 3 years. I'm just looking for 1. Now, for the rest of you, if you are interested, especially for my regional offices of education, libraries, and private schools, you can by all means join that consortium for K12 internet. However, they're not going to pick up your undiscounted share. So they're not going to pick up the cost for our private schools, our special ed co-ops, our vocational co-ops, regional offices of education, alternative safe schools. Those were not included in the funding package that came from the legislature to cover the non-discounted share. It's solely only for public K12 districts. So if you are interested in joining them, you can. You would have to pay your non-discounted share. If you're interested in bidding out on your own, then you absolutely can do that. I would ask for 12 months, 36 months, and maybe even, you know, a 5-year contract. So you can ask for different contract options and see if it's going to save you money over time down here. If we had internet access down here that we wanted to say, you know, I want bids by a certain date, right? So if you're going to evaluate your bids, you could say, all bids should be received. R-E-C-I-E-B-E-D. I got to learn to spell. That's apparently not right. It changed it for me. Is it I before E? E-I, because it's after C. There's a rhyme for that. Okay. All bids should be received by the allowable contract date and will be reviewed immediately after that date. So some people say at the end of my 28-day window, that is my allowable contract date. I want your bid by then. However, if you say something like this and you don't get a bid from your current provider because they're not paying attention, like we talked about in the chat earlier, you better be calling them the last couple of days of your window and saying, I want a bid from you. So don't make it a disclaimer if you don't want it to be a disclaimer. Or you could say, will be reviewed January 3rd. 2023. Gosh, that looks weird. Do you want to put a deadline or anything on yours, Natalie, or would you like me to remove that?
Actually, I will be in Jamaica on January 3rd, so
it's nice to be
please, Mindy, please
remove
don't
that.
make me
Okay.
work.
Okay.
Let's make that a little different.
All right.
because I love
Okay.
you.
I'm gonna let it run for you. Any other questions or comments on internet access lines? I'm going to show just one last thing and then delete it. For those of you who want to build your own fiber, you're going to say, I seek bids for internet access. And then you're going to say, I seek to build my own network. And if you want to build your own network, say that that's a line between each of your buildings. So we're going to say 1 to the buildings, and then I'm just making it up for you, Harrisburg. I want 1 line into the network. Actually, I want to do 5 between all my buildings. This says self-provisioned or self-owned. This one says third-party networks. Technically, the third-party network is supposed to cover all of your lit fiber solutions. But I am telling you that is not good enough. I want you to go ahead and enter that like you would normally do. And it's not going to let me because notice it says it requires an RFP. I want you to go ahead and enter this, the self-provision and the third-party network. And then I would say, and you do want the installation because you're asking it to be built and given to you. But then I would also do, I'm going to cancel that one and show you. I would also, in addition to that, I would say, I also seek bids for internet access and any kind of service. I would do them both because I have seen people say, I thought the third-party network option covered me, and fighting with their PIA reviewers back and forth because they're saying you didn't also bid out lit fiber. I'm with you. I thought that meant that too, but just to be clear, I want everybody to know I can have that lit fiber as a comparison. Because what happens in the review process when you want to own it yourself is they first say, let me see your rubric where you chose your winner for your new network build. And then they say, let me see where you compared the cost of owning it yourself over 5 to 10 years to the cost of paying an internet provider over 5 to 10 years. And you must be able to show that it's more cost effective to own it yourself. It almost always is, but you have to be able to demonstrate that you looked at that. And if you did not bid out lit fiber service and you didn't get those bids because providers aren't looking at that third option, then you cannot show that comparison. And I want you to be able to have no questions in PIA review and be able to pass that with flying colors. Again, we're not going to do an installation here. So we're going to say, no, I don't want payment plans. If you would have an installation, so you get a brand new provider bidding out to you and they say, hey, it's going to cost you $20,000 to build it. This is just saying, yes, I want to break that down over 4 years of payments, which you're allowed to do, or no, just give me one big lump sum and I'm going to apply for the state match. Again, if you're a public K12 district, I would encourage you to use the state matching fund and get it all paid for at once and have the state pay the difference. Okay, so if you currently have separate transport and internet, your first one for transport is going to look like this. It's going to say transmission, and the next one's going to say standalone data transmission service. And you're going to have another one that says internet access without data transmission. So you're going to have two on your chart. So Carla, that's a really good question. She's saying we're currently under contract, but we want to increase our capacity. So you can say, you don't even really have to say it, but you could say, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. What your effort, she's wanting to say acceptance of any bid may be dependent upon ability to get out of current contract commitments. You could say that. I don't know that I would. It might limit the number that you get, which would be okay. But we're going to take that into account in your rubric. And the cost of getting out of your current contract would be one of the factors that we take into account. But you could say that if you want to use it like as a warning. It's not quite a disqualifier, but it is a warning and might deter some people from giving you a bid. Limit the number of bids. Yeah, you could say that. Just so they heads up know that you are, you're in a current contract, you're just running your options. It might also make your current provider feel better when they see a 470 out. All right, I'm going to say save and continue. And then it says, are you the technical contact person for your district? And Natalie's like, no, please do not make me the current. Is there a person? Yes, there is a new person. And I don't remember if we have her in the EPC system or not. What's her email?
You have Sherry Fox.
There we go. She is in the system. If you do not have the person in the system, which is okay, if you have a Sherry Fox at your district that answers your tech questions, you can enter your details manually. If they're not in the system, that's all right. The other factor here is please do not list someone who does not work for your district. So in this case, Sherry Fox does work for Harrisburg, but some districts use a tech that is like a local guy that comes in and they work for whatever tech company. Please do not list that person as your technical contact person. Flow the information through you. The big example of that is like our QNS people. Do not list your QNS people. That in essence prohibits QNS from bidding on your contract. Okay, so I've seen that before. That kind of messes up the bidding process and they want to know why your tech person also works for the company that you've chosen, and then we could lose funding on that. So please, if you are not the tech person, but you use a contractual tech person, just say, no, there's not another person, and forward those questions on to your geeky person in the background. I say that with love. I too am a geeky person. We're going to say save and continue. And then it says, are there any separate state or local procurement requirements that we need to follow? The answer to this is no, we do not have any separate procurement laws in Illinois that impact K12 tech purchases. Some people will say if you're putting in a build or something and you're a district of a certain size, you do have to do the like lowest cost provider, something about unions. I'm not sure. But if you wanted to list that, you could. If you say yes, it just says, what are those rules and procurement rules? Some of our our Cook County people sometimes know of things that I'm unaware of that they enter in. But I'm going to say no, and then say review form 470. And it is going to make my 470 available in the tasks when it's ready. So it takes it a minute. Okay, so the question in the chat is, when will the 471 be available? The best guess that I can give you is mid-January. So typically they open that around the 10th or 11th of January, and it runs through March 1st. They have not announced when that 471 will open. I used to do a lot of 471 trainings in January, and sometimes that wasn't open yet. And sometimes we got snowed out. So this year I just kind of pushed those dates back to February, and we're starting our training days on February 1st. But it will definitely be open by February 1st. I've never seen it later than January, mid-January. In years past, you've stated that you were interested in bundled services and or transport only back to the ICN. Yes, you can absolutely do that. You can list both of those, but on your chart, I would list as an option transport only and list as an option lit fiber, because bundled services is through the same provider and transport back to ICN is a separate thing. So please make sure both of those are in your chart and then say that in your narrative. What that means is that you will take bids for bundled service from your Clearwave or your Comcast or whoever comes together and says, here's your internet, but you'll also take a bid from them that says, this is what it would cost to take you back to ICN. And that might be a separate thing. That is a really great solution, actually, for those of you who haven't filled out the paperwork for ICN, but you want to take advantage of the state network. They do have some extra added features like higher level security services that you don't pay extra for, on transport connections to higher ed institutions in our state. So if you want that as an option, definitely say that. And then you could say to your provider, it might be the same price, but it might be a different price for just transport. Hard to tell. When they offer you transport back to ICN, they will figure out their closest connection point for your district back to the Illinois Century Network. That might be one of the hubs on that map that I showed you earlier, but it could be that they know there's ICN fiber, you know, more locally at a like hospital or voting facility that they can connect to at a cheaper rate. So once I've waited for a bit, I can click on tasks, and the task now does have a 1. Again, if you have a multitude of tasks here, you can feel free to click on any of those. And then you're going to click on it and then say back if you want to edit it. There's a discard form, so you can get rid of the extras. If you want to move forward with this, this document link allows you to download a copy for yourself, which I encourage you to either print out a copy or save a copy yourself. That is the standard. You're checking a certification on the next page that says you're going to keep everything for 10 years. If the internet all goes down, I want to make sure you have a hard copy there somewhere locally on a machine or in a file. And then once you say the yes, that is what I want it to be. First, let me open it for you and show you how basic it is. It is simply just, this is you. This is your contact information. And this is what you asked for. So there's a lot of empty boxes here because you don't have a consulting firm or a consultant. You didn't add an RFP. You simply only asked for data transmission service. And there's very little in this particular narrative. There are no category 2 service requests because we only asked for category 1 on this form. And Sherry Fox is your technical contact. So it's very, very basic. It does look a little bit different than what we saw last year. Formatting is a little different than what we've had in the past. And when you click on continue to certification, yes, these are the certifications, and I will translate from legalese to English for you. They are the same for category 1 and category 2. So if you're moving forward with your category 2 application and you want to be done early, you can do that. The first one says, I meet the definition of a school or library in my state. The second one said, I know I will wait at least 28 days before signing a contract and picking a winning bidder. The next one says, I will keep documentation of everything for this program for 10 years. The next one says, I am meeting all my local and state bidding procurement requirements to the best of my ability. I am not a criminal. I've not been convicted of a crime. Pretty sure you're not a criminal, Natalie. Let me know if I can check that. And then down here it says, I understand that my discounts can change from year to year depending on my poverty level of my students. So if a big group of your poor students win the Mega Millions or whatever together and are no longer poor, that could impact your discount level. In addition to that, if you have a like company or something that closes in your district and you find in the middle of the year that you have more kids eligible for free and reduced lunch than when you filed this form, that checkbox also gives you the right to reach out to USAC and say, I want to change those numbers, to talk to the state and USAC and get that higher discount in the middle of the year. Very rarely do we see that happen, but it did happen during the pandemic for some. And then under here, I understand that I have to secure the computers and everything that to use this internet will be put into use. So more legalese that says this is run by USAC, but it's mandated by the FCC, and it's about all from the Communications Act of 1934. So runs a little bit of history there in the notice, and then you would click certify. Natalie, do you want me to click certify on your behalf, or do you want me to just hold off on this? And
I can certify it. Yeah, I can log in and
okay. So I'm going to go
do that after we do the next one.
All right. So I'm going to go back from the certification so that you're the one that's doing that. And I am going to go back to edit just to show somebody if you see something that's incorrect, it takes you right to the front of the page and you just page through all the pages with your charts and everything till you get to the end. I just want to show one more feature on this one, and then we'll do our Cat 2. On this very last page where, oh, sorry, hold on. We're going to wait for it to re-task. It may also send you an email when we do that. Sorry if you got a double email. It's mad at me. There we go. You also had the options to send to someone else for certification. So several of you have the rights to fill out the form, but you want your superintendent or business manager or somebody to certify. If you click to send for certification, it says, do you wish to proceed and who in the system will certify it? If you are doing this and you've had a change in superintendent or business manager that does your certification, you can say yes, but then they won't, and maybe they're not in the system. You'll have to call that 800 number that I gave you earlier in order to add them to the system to be able to send this to them for them to certify. So I'm just going to leave that task as is, and we're going to go back to reports and landing page, and we're going to do our category 2 example. So I'm going to click on FCC form 470 to start a new one, and we're going to name this one HBG 470 FY 23-24 Cat 2. Is the only thing we're asking for a firewall this year?
It's the firewall, but also we kind of talked about this, the filtering as well, which got denied in the past. Yeah. And so, I didn't know if we wanted to list things out separately or how you wanted to.
There is a magic box for that. So let's do that together. So what she is talking about is last year when we attempted to get her firewall service paid for, part of her service cost is the firewall itself, the protection piece, which E-rate covers. The other part is the filtering and higher level security services piece that's being debated back there of whether or not that's eligible, right, at the FCC. Right now, I think it's a 50-50 shot. Like, we'll see what they decide to do. She did not get hers paid for last year because the majority of her license that she was paying for was considered to be the filtering and the higher level services. And so it was not eligible. So we got denied on that. We're going to try for that again this year, but I think we can do it both ways. So we'll cover both of those bases. Again, Natalie is the main contact person. And this time I'm going to click on category 2. There is not an RFP for this service. However, if you were doing like a wiring project of a new school, you have any additional information to give, like a schematic of your building, of where you want the drops, or it was way easier for you to put your details of what you wanted out on a page than it is to list it in the narrative. By all means, you can use a RFP if you want to. You are not required to. So in category 2, when I click on add new service request, I get a lot more options than I had in category 1. This one says I seek bids for equipment. This one says I seek bids for basic maintenance. That's where I talked about work or services. And this last one is I seek bids for the operation, management, and monitoring of my network. So if you have a contract with someone who maintains your network for you, that is option 3. So I'm going to check this first one and say, I want equipment. She wants her firewall. So down here under functions, we're going to say, what is this? And this is where it's kind of a choose your own adventure for everyone asking for category 2. And you are free and open to go off of mute or to go into the chat and say, hey, I'm not a geeky person. What does this categorize as? Like my tech told me I need this. What category, what function is that? For this one, firewall service is spelled out as a firewall service components, etc. So we're going to choose firewall for her. We're going to say we just want one firewall, right? We're not talking about new firewalls at every building. You guys do one firewall service?
Correct.
Okay, so one firewall. And then we're going to say the manufacturer is, who do you use?
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto or equivalent Palo Alto networks. I'm going to go with the general Palo Alto because I feel like that covers everything. And then are you wanting them to come and install it for you, or is Sherry going to do that for you?
Sherry's going to do it.
Okay, so we're going to say no. If you are a small school district that uses a consultant to do your tech stuff for you, say yes, because that installation charge of $100 an hour or whatever would be eligible. Or maybe you just don't want, maybe you're the tech and you just don't want to install the new firewall. It's a brand new firewall and you want to make sure it's right and you want somebody else to do it. By all means, include the installation.
Service.
Hey, Sherry has a question for you, Mindy.
Yes.
When we get our new firewalls, we usually contract through Palo Alto to upgrade from our old one to this. Is that included?
So yeah, we're going to say yes then. So that way, if
Okay.
there is a charge, we can, on your bid, when you get it, you can claim it.
Okay.
Sherry's like, please make sure that's covered. In addition, this is the magic button where it says, please select this option if you would like to create an accompanying category 2 BMIC. BMIC is maintenance. Some of the licenses for firewalls in particular are considered integral for the running of the device and our internal connections. Some of the licenses, like the one that we did not get paid for last year, are considered maintenance. So we have to kind of figure out where it's going to land. There may be one firewall device that's internal connections, one license that's the running of that device, and then an annual license for definitions of filtering. So we want to make sure we've covered that, and that's going to create 2 things on our chart that you'll see here in a minute. It just simply says, I want basic maintenance of a Palo Alto, and the entities served are 6, right? So it's maintenance for all 6 of my buildings for the firewall. Could I create them separately? Sure. I could have added a new service request, said maintenance, and then said maintenance on a firewall. But that new little button allowed me to do it all in one. So I have both the firewall and the software here. So in my chat, I say, does MIBS contract fall under the 3rd option? So MIBS is managed internal broadband services. And yes, that is the 3rd option. Let me show you what that looks like. The 3rd option is the management of your network. And you say, I seek MIBS for equipment that I lease or will lease, or I seek MIBS for equipment that I own or will own. For most of you, it is the 2nd one. You just want maintenance on all the equipment that you own. There are a couple of districts that I work with that lease their equipment from the provider that also provides their service. And then that, in that case, would be the 1st one. But for most of you, it is equipment that you own. I'm just going to save it so you can see what it looks like. Okay. And we'll delete that from the chart in a minute. Would a PUD, power distribution unit, similar to a power strip for server racks? That's a great question. Okay, I might calling all tech geeks. I feel like I would ask for UPS and cabling. I would ask for both of them, Chris. And in the narrative, I would say, interested in a PDU, power distribution unit, for my network equipment, so that it is clear that what you want is the PDU. I am guessing that USAC would refer to that as in cabling, but just in case somebody in PIA review calls it a battery backup, I want to CYA there. Any other comments from my geeks? By the way, if you consider yourself a tech geeky person, we have a separate channel for you on our community to communicate with like-minded individuals. And I highly encourage you, if you're brand new, to check out techgeeks.org, which is a grassroots state listserv for geeky conversations. It's my favorite thing about geeks, Chris, is that they're not afraid to ask other geeks their opinion. Any other questions or comments about what should be here? I will stay on the line when we are done in case you just don't want to ask in front of everyone else. Let me delete here this service request. Is there anything that you want to say down here in the narrative? Like, by chance, what firewall are we talking about?
Model number,
Yeah, so this is a Palo Alto.
I don't know yet.
Okay, so seeking bids for Palo Alto, what do you have right now?
Palo Alto 500.
500 or equivalent. Did I spell that right? Or equivalent. Both new equipment and continued license options. Does that make sense to you? Seeking bids for the Palo Alto or equivalent.
Sherry's is saying yes.
Okay. All right,
Understood.
perfect. Now, Sherry, if you find out that you get bids back for like a Palo Alto 900 and it's like a way bigger, better thing, and that's really what you decide you want to go with, we might file a new 470 to say, okay, give me prices on the 900. Do you see what I'm saying? If you decide to go new and it does get covered and, you know, all of our stars align, we might bid out for a bigger, better if you could get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the 500 that we have now is end of life. So I mean, so it's not gonna be.
Yeah, so it's likely that there might be a different one. And if they come back and say this one's end of life and the 800 is your only option or the 550 is your only option, that's fine. All the providers would know that. But if they come back and say, we could still get you the 500, but we could also get you the 900 and it's the Cadillac, and you decide you really want the Cadillac, we might bid out again specifically for the Cadillac to just make sure we're covered.
Okay, sounds good.
So great questions in the chat. If you are just wanting a extension for your license, if you're doing a filter, please put in the firewall service for your SIPA filter. A firewall service and components, that is actually the necessary software. And I would do it exactly like I did my example here, except in your case, you would just have one entity instead of 6. Because I'm not sure when we get those SIPA filter licenses, what counts as running the device and what counts as bonus service. So again, want to make sure that we've covered the bonus service stuff as basic, you know, like upgrades, but also covered the license itself. And then I do have a question from someone that we want to look up an FCC number. So we're going to do that at the very end. Okay, again, saving and continuing to the next page. Yes, there is a contact person. It is Sherry Fox. Save and continue. And no, there are no super secrets local laws. I'm going to click on that review form 470. The process is exactly the same. So she will shortly have 2 tasks in her taskbar that will say 2 and will allow her to see both of them and certify both of them on her end. So I'm just going to go to the slide deck here and cover the question that some of you were asking, and then I'll do more questions at the end. Other funding that you should be aware of. So several of you asked about ECF today. So for those of you who do not know about it, ECF is a home access funding. So it was an emergency funding focused on home access. It is sending home those Wi-Fi hotspots for your students. It's also purchasing devices for your students that otherwise would not have devices through this emergency funding. We are in round 3 of the funding. So round 3 does cover the 22-23 school year. What was asked for outweighed what was available. So say we had $3 billion left in the fund. There were $5 billion in requests. So what they are currently doing is funding the poorest districts first. And we have seen reviews up to the rural 80% districts. By my calculations, they will run out of money somewhere in the urban 80% district. So they do rural first and then urban. However, there is a new bill put forth by the people who put forth the original bill in the legislature here in a process right now, and we'll see where it goes, that would fund the remaining requests. So it would give enough funding to the program to fund the rest of you that asked and haven't heard yet. So that's optimistic. If there is any funding for ECF moving forward, it will not be called ECF. So I think that there are some powers that be that would like to see something like that continue, but you can't hardly get any funding for anything that has the word emergency on it anymore, right? So they would have to come up with a new name for that moving forward. So I'm not saying that that whole process and everything entirely dies. I think that there is something moving forward that we might see, but right now there is a bill to fully fund what has been asked for. So we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. For those of you who are 70% or higher discount level, if you need those devices that you asked for, you need to come up with a plan B for now. But there may be a chance. So I'm a little bit more optimistic about those than I was before in looking at that moving forward. So we'll see what that looks like and how that progresses. If you're 70%, don't give up. Don't give up totally, but maybe come up with the plan B or a way of local funding that you can pay for that in order to then get reimbursed if and when you do get funded. ACP, which is the Affordable Connectivity Program, could take over for those of you who didn't apply or those of you who applied and did not get down to your discount level for that home access piece. So it is home access. It gives a $30 discount on home access for anybody that is deemed to be in poverty. So it is based on poverty, but applying for SNAP or applying for Social Security or having a college student with a Pell Grant would make you eligible for ACP. For those of you who are CEP schools where everyone gets free and reduced lunch, it does not matter if it's the wealthiest kid in your district, you're a CEP school. So everyone is eligible. So anyone in your district that is currently paying for internet could get a $30 discount. That also includes the teachers in your district. So if you are a CEP school, know that you can sign up for ACP and you can get a $30 discount on your internet. Many of our internet providers are offering special $30 programs for internet at homes that will allow you to basically then have free internet if you sign up for ACP. You can reach out to the fcc.gov/ACP for more information and promotional materials. They've got all kinds of flyers and letters and things that you can send home. They also have on that where you can sign up right there. You can also deal with your provider to get that discount and sign up. So if you have questions about ACP, please let me know. That is a ongoing, it is no longer emergency. It was formerly the emergency broadband benefit. But note, they took that word emergency off. It is an ongoing affordable connectivity program now. So anybody who has students at home that you're really wanting to get connected, I know that that puts the process and the request on the parent at that point, but it's a more sustainable program, meaning they will get free internet themselves moving forward. James has a question.
Yes, we are a 70% rural district, but we still have not received a decision on the 22 school year for the ECF. I'm in the portal now and it shows that my 21 was committed, but my 22 still just shows status certified.
Okay.
Should I be concerned at this point? Do I need to reach out to anybody, or is it still a waiting game?
Not really concerned. We're just not to you yet, right? So they're doing
Okay,
the poorest people first.
Okay.
It's hard to tell. So like in the chat, I've got somebody else saying, how do I get reimbursed for my round 2? There is a bare form that you fill out in round 2. So you did the wireless hotspots. You have to then turn in your invoicing in the bare form there in ECF. It's not the normal one, but the ECF
Right.
there.
Right.
You can go in, you have to provide invoices to show how many of these hotspots you used each month. You have to show that you received them. You have to kind of spell out the dates for the 12 months of service, Kelly. So you can spell all that out. You can get that all together, and then you can go back and you can ask for that invoicing. What I'm finding is there are several people who asked for devices and hotspots in round 1 and 2 where they estimated, and they maybe thought they needed 100 and come to find out they only put into play 40. Which means they're going to return those funds back into the program, and more people are going to likely get funded. So that could go back and fund James's that is waiting there in round 3. Also, round 3 could be funded at the 70% level by that bill that I was talking about that is currently circulating to fund the rest. So the invoicing deadline is actually not until December of 2024. So you've got plenty of time for that, but please don't wait. Like if you have your money that's sitting there, let's get money. Like I get it that you have to get your stuff together, but it's easier to gather that information in a timely manner now than it is like 12 months later. Also, you should be looking out for federal broadband and digital equity funding. So it's not particular to education, but the NTIA, or the National Telecommunications and Information Administration at the national level, is now rolling out all of that stimulus funding for infrastructure and broadband networks. They are working with states, and in our state, that is the Illinois Office of Broadband that will be responsible for that. These are community-based internet projects. So just because your school has great internet does not mean the communities and neighborhoods around your school have great internet. They are starting to take a look at what are those underserved or not served communities in our state. I would encourage you to start talking to your Office of Economic Commerce there in your town and get your voice heard at the table, because you want to, 1, stand up for your students in your building, and 2, they might not be aware that you have internet access from a provider at your district that could be leveraged to bring more internet through that town. So some of the companies that serve our businesses and schools have not traditionally been serving communities, but through this project might be intrigued or interested in getting those billed to the communities paid for by this upcoming funding. So please do take a look at that. Talk to your communities and know what's going on with broadband and have a voice at the table, and make sure that they don't bring new internet in and don't consider your students that are in certain parts of your community that are underserved. Like they might not be aware there's a low-income housing project that they are thinking about, because they're thinking from business minds and not from students' learning minds. Again, the Illinois Department of Commerce is the one who put together that Illinois broadband project. They do have Connect Illinois grants. School districts have been the fiscal agents on those for some communities. So that is an option to you to kind of maintain and run that planning process yourself for your community, but also be a part of it. Part of the K12 broadband initiative, the part that pays your non-discounted share, some of that funding came from this office. So we are really looking at leveraging all the funding we can in Illinois to get that internet out to everywhere. They also have a computer equity network, which is working with PCs for People, and they will take refurbished laptops that have been donated usually by companies, and refurbish them, clean them up, and give them out to poor families in your community who might need access to devices. So that's a nice project that they're working on too, as well as an interactive map where they're trying to identify in our state what has low or limited or no access. And they encourage you to kind of check out their mapping and come in and say, you say that we have internet here in this community and we absolutely don't, and correct them if they're wrong. So do check out the Illinois Office of Broadband and materials. There are some federal funds that we're all looking at right now. So you've got all your ESSER, CARES funding that happened for the stimulus that's still in play. I think we're in the third bucket of funding for that. We're trying to wrap up expenses in the second bucket, but we're starting the third bucket. So do be aware of that. As part of that, there is a digital equity fund from the State Board of Education that hinged on schools. The focus for that is on outfitting everyone to one-to-one, getting all of our school districts a device for every student. So do check with your superintendent about that. That's an IWAS. And if you were awarded funding, you will see that in an IWAS application. Again, the primary use for that is devices for students. But if you find that you already have devices for every student, you might be able to pay for, like the monitoring software for those devices, projectors, interactive whiteboards, coaches to work with your staff. So lots of other uses for that digital equity funding if you can demonstrate that you do have one-to-one for everyone, including those hotspots. So please do check that out and see if you did get awarded some of that funding for digital equity in IWAS. I just can't say it strong enough. Technology is an eligible expense for any kind of title funding moving forward. I think the pandemic has shown us that technology is a tool in all areas, and technology does serve students that are homeless, does serve students that are special needs, does serve all students, no matter what economic background that they have. So know that technology funding and programs and services are eligible under these other categories. They may already be spoken for some of the other programs that you have in your district, because there's a lot of competing interest in those funds, but technology is an eligible expense. And it has been identified as something that you can do. So please do look for that. I am told we will have a small increase in, I say small because I want to limit your expectations, but an increase in title funding moving forward after the pandemic. I hope that we will see that. I don't know that we will see a separate set aside for technology like we had in the 2000s, but I'm hoping that we will have some dedicated use for technology moving forward. And they are now working on a new national ed tech plan right now. And I'm a part of that process. So I'm really hoping to build a case for the importance of technology and maybe some dedicated funding moving forward. Does anyone have any questions about additional funding sources or anything else? Can you show me how to much money for this? Okay. Yes, absolutely. I'm being asked for a demo of Category 2 tool again, which I can do. See if I can find any questions while I'm doing that. I'm watching the chat. You're welcome to go off of mute. I'm going to go down here to my very last page though and say, please do go to the E-rate page. Here again is the link for our presentation today that you maybe saw in the chat if you need a link to the presentation. And I am going to go to the Category 2 tool. So Kelly, I'm going to show you the easiest way to go. There is a link previously in my slide deck to it, or you can just go to Google and say Cat2 budget tool USAC. And in your Google search, you will find USAC Category 2 budgets. And then there is a 21 and forward tool. So we got to scroll down. Where was it? Category 2 budget tool. Again, there's a link in the presentation as well. So I'm going to look for your particular district. So we're going to go Illinois. and apply. And Kelly, I'm pretty sure you're North City. If you're not, let me know. Oh, Westland. Okay, sorry. Wrong district. 852 of you and one of me. They also have a Kelly. Okay, why am I not finding Westland is not the city? Okay. Reset. Let's go to build entity name Westland. There we go. And apply. So looking down here, it says Westland is in Trenton, Illinois. You have 4 sites with 1,300 students. Your total budget was this, and you have spent all of it. Sorry. You're overly spent. Now, if you find that in that fund, you have spent all of it, but you didn't really, like you asked for the money, but you never really bought it, then you could, then you can come back and return some of those funds with a Form 500. Reach out to me if you did not move forward with the project, and I'll help you return some of those funds so that they're then available. Jared, yes, this is all recorded. That recording will probably process this afternoon, and I will send it to everyone who came. You are also welcome to join me at any of these trainings that are listed at another training if you want, if that's easier for you. But you will get a recording of this, and I'm also going to pick out parts of the greatest hits over the recordings and offer them free and ready and available on our YouTube channel in smaller segments instead of the whole video.
Okay, Mindy,
Yes.
I saw that I was funded, but I was just wondering if there was a way to see what disbursements were made. Like if you set, do you know what I mean? Like if we actually received that. Because we did go through with the project.
I'm trying to think of the best way to tell you how to do that. Another tool, E-Rate Central. I think this will help you. I think this is what you want. So this is a consultant firm, but they have a fantastic tool on their website. That is 136,500, you said. And it will show you what you've paid for the last couple of years. So here's your 2021. And it shows you what was dispersed in 2021. So we had a couple of projects with QNS. And then if you go to 2022, it will show you that you asked for $10,000, but it has not been dispersed yet.
Okay, so where did you go? I'm at E-Rate Central. Then where did you go after that?
Let me go back. E-Rate Central, scroll down to funding history search.
Oh,
And
okay.
enter your bin number.
Okay.
And if any of those numbers don't look right to you, something's questionable, et cetera, let me know, because I have my own tools that I use as the state coordinator. They're just not like public facing tools. So this is the best one that I know about. Sometimes if something hasn't been paid, I can kind of see the errors of why it hasn't been paid if I dig into the system.
Hey, Mindy.
Yes.
So in my form, I told you I wasn't going to talk, but I'm going to talk. In my 470 for my internal connections, in 2022's E-Rate, I requested some switches that have yet to arrive. And from what I'm understanding from the company, they're still very delayed. And so I was going to make another request this year for more, hoping that maybe if I choose a different manufacturer, maybe I can get them in sooner. Because he's still telling me that Aruba is really backed up.
Okay, so 2 things to tell you. Number one, they know that the supply chain demand has been a problem. So everything in 2021 got an automatic invoicing extension to June 30th of 2024, I think. Let me double check that number. Let me check that year. But you got a whole year, right? June 30th of 2023.
Right.
Last year, you got a whole another 12 months. That's fine. The second thing that I have been told, and because you said Aruba, I'm not positive, but I have been told by the by some companies, Aruba not in particular, but maybe another one, that they have decided for some of those switches and things like that, that they would be willing to give you the bigger, better switch at the same price. So I'm just going to break it out there. Ruckus is doing that. Ruckus is saying, we can't get this switch, but we can get you the bigger, better switch at the same price. We'd like to start distributing those to schools so that we can get them out and finish up these contracts. So check with your provider and have them ask Aruba if that's an option.
So is Aruba and Ruckus the same?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So he recommended, because I told him that I was filing again, and I'm going to ask for more switches because the initial 8 were just going to get us 1 switch in each cabinet. So now or the initial 6. And so now I'm like, okay, well, let's just order 8 more because I've got the funding to do it.
Okay.
But I was thinking I would go ahead and ask for 8 Aruba again, but also ask for 8 Ruckus because he said that Ruckus is doing pretty well. So those are 2 separate filings.
You could ask for both of those on a 470. You can then move forward with the old contract and not move forward with what you have here if they come in, or you could cancel the old one and move forward with the new one and give yourself even more time, right? So that's your option.
Okay. Do I want Ruckus or equivalent or Ruckus wireless or equivalent? I think it would just be
when I'm given 2 options, I always go with the overarching one. That's just me. If you happen to know that it's Ruckus wireless, you can make that decision. But
yeah, I have no idea. I'm just going to do Ruckus.
I would just choose Ruckus. Yeah.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, please do check with your providers because I know there was one provider in particular that was really trying to push Ruckus to make that decision and make that rule. They were trying it first. It has been successful. It actually rolled out with some Illinois school districts. We came up with this plan at IETC last month. And so we have successfully moved forward with doing a service substitution and changing the device and pushing forward with approval on that service substitution so that we can get it paid for and move on with the the alternate switch. So I expect that once that is proven successful, it will go out to all the other service providers who sell those products, and that other companies will follow suit and try to do a similar thing so that they can just get you guys all off their books. No offense, but they don't want to keep you hanging either. So,
okay. So it is okay for me to have a request for 8 Aruba and a request for 8 Ruckus.
It is. And if you want to try to get some movement on the old one, that's called a service substitution. And that's in the upper right-hand corner of that landing page. I'm happy to help you with it.
Okay, yeah, I'll schedule something with you a little bit later when I'm feeling better. Okay.
All right, everybody. I'm at the end of my show. It's 12:01. We're all done. I'll stick around here on the line, but I am done today. Have a great afternoon and thank you for joining me. You should get a email from me with this recording in the next couple of days. And you should also have an automatic email giving you PD credit for joining us if you would like it. So please know that. So thank you for joining us today. I'm going to stop sharing and also stop our recording. I don't want to do a poll. I want to stop the recording.